Chapter 158. Actually, such a commotion was not uncommon. Every year, there would be some famous celebrities admitted to Zhongqing Media University. There was one in the morning, and it was even bigger than this. At that time, it was a small-time female star who had acted in a few TV series. The boys swarmed over like a hornet's nest being poked. However, this handsome boy was a little hard to understand. They had never seen him before. Although he was quite handsome, his hairstyle was styled according to the standards of celebrities, and his skin was soft and tender. He was very popular with the girls of this era. "Who is that?" Ding Xiang couldn't help but ask. "I don't know. I've never seen him before." A girl beside her shook her head. "But he's quite handsome." Guazi had just finished signing his name. He looked up and glanced at the boy who was reporting. He pursed his lips without a trace. He had seen this person before. They were in the same group for the arts exam. However, his acting skills were really bad. He was considered skilled, but his face was expressionless. He came and went with a cool expression. At this moment, a girl ran back excitedly. She had joined in the commotion just now. "I know who he is. It's Tang Kai Tai." "Who's Tang Kai Tai?" Someone was still confused. Tang Kai Tai is the former child star. However, his father is more influential. He's now the leader of Xiongnan TV station. When Tang Kai Tai was young, he was brought by his father to appear in their children's programs. Later on, he also acted in some TV series. It's only in recent years that he went overseas to further his studies. Oh, so he was reincarnated into a good family. A boy couldn't help but say sourly. Tang Kai Tai is also very hardworking. He acted in many films when he was young. I watched him grow up. The girl said shamelessly. "Pfft, you're older than him, right?" Her friend exposed her mercilessly. So he had a background. No wonder he could get in with such bad acting skills. Guazi was silent. If it was the old him, he would definitely criticize her and then use his top score to prove that he was the one who should be admitted to the film academy. However, Guazi had been working hard in Beijing for a while now and had matured a lot. Although he criticized her in his heart, he didn't say it out loud. There were no twists and turns in the base camp. After reporting, Guazi took some of the information handed over by his senior brothers and sisters and found his dormitory. Ding Xiang carried his luggage and sent him off as usual. "How embarrassing." "Senior Marshal Sister, actually, I know the way here. I've been to Jiangchuan several times in the past. Just let me go by myself." Guazi really felt bad about letting a girl carry his bag for him. He dragged his suitcase and was about to snatch it from her. "You can't carry it yourself. The dormitory is still far away." Ding Xiang refused. Guazi almost tripped over his own feet, but Ding Xiang's eyes were sharp and her hands were quick enough to support him. Guazi didn't expect Ding Xiang to be so strong. Her left hand was able to support him, who was more than 170 kilograms. He even staggered a few steps in a sorry state before he managed to steady himself. "Look, let me help you carry it," Ding Xiang said with a smile. Guazi was so ashamed that he wanted to dig into the ground. He had no choice but to accept Ding Xiang's arrangement. In Beijing, director Chan Fengchen, who had obtained the copyright, wasn't in a hurry to hold a press conference. He was still busy filming a historical drama. Although it was almost ending, every project should be finished well. Chan Fengchen still needed to be busy for a few months with filming and post-production. Of course, he didn't completely put these two works aside. Chan Fengchen found his personal scriptwriter and asked him to help change the original novel into a script. At the same time, Chan Fengchen also started to use his various connections to find suitable actors. Even if Yang Yi didn't request, Chan Fengchen, who liked to strive for perfection, would still choose the most suitable actor for his own film. All of this was carried out in full swing. Chan Fengchen didn't look like a 60-year-old man at all. He was full of energy and devoted himself to his work. In Zhongcheng, at Qianmei's headquarters, Murphy brought Mo Xiaowan and knocked on Sister Ling's door. "Murphy, you're back? How was your vacation? Niu Meiling was still smiling. There was another person sitting in her office. Jian Chua, Zhan Muqian's manager. Mo Xiaowan and the other person's eyes met. The smell of gunpowder was very strong. Sister Ling, everything is fine. Murphy smiled at Niu Meiling. All right, Sister Ling, I have something to tell you. Just like before, Murphy didn't like to be polite. Sister Ling, do you want me to go out first? Jian Chua pushed her chair and stood up. It's fine. Jian Chua isn't an outsider. If you have something to say, just say it. Niu Meiling said with a smile. Murphy didn't feel anything, but Mo Xiaowan slightly frowned. She noticed that Sister Ling's attitude towards Murphy was different. However, now wasn't the time to worry about this problem. Mo Xiaowan opened the folder in her hand and said to Niu Meiling, Sister Ling, before you said that if we prepared 12 songs, we would start preparing a new album for Murphy. That's right. What are you guys doing? Niu Meiling looked at Murphy and Mo Xiaowan with slight surprise. Mo Xiaowan faintly smiled. She took out a piece of paper from the folder and pushed it in front of Niu Meiling. Now that we have prepared 12 songs, I'll have to trouble Sister Ling to tell everyone at tomorrow's meeting to put Murphy's new album on the agenda. 12 songs. This exclamation came from Jian Chua. She looked at Mo Xiaowan in disbelief. That's right. Mo Xiaowan charmingly smiled at the other party. In Jian Chua's eyes, Mo Xiaowan's smile was full of malice. She was very unhappy and said sourly, 12 songs in such a short time. Who knows if they were randomly found in the Copyright Association's library? Sister Ling, if they're all bad songs, then this album might as well not be released. Niu Meiling didn't make a move. She just looked at Mo Xiaowan. We didn't randomly gather 12 songs. Mo Xiaowan proudly said. Sister Ling, the song list I gave you has the names of the songwriters. Niu Meiling frowned and looked down. It was all Mu Xiang. Mu Xiang. Niu Meiling didn't react for a moment. Mu Xiang? That Mu Xiang? Jian Chua's face changed. The Mu Xiang who wrote 2 songs for Chen Yijie? Hee, that's right. Mo Xiaowan raised her head and proudly said. Mu Xiang is our Sister Fei's fan. He wrote 12 songs for Sister Fei in one go, and every one of them is a masterpiece. Xiaowan. Murphy felt that Mo Xiaowan was a bit too complacent and reprimanded her. Even so, looking at Mo Xiaowan's proud look, Niu Meiling and Jian Chua knew that what they said was true. Sister Ling, you know that I've always been a very serious person when it comes to music. Murphy looked at Niu Meiling and said sincerely, Fortunately, we have the help of an excellent composer like Mu Xiang. The 12 songs are all of good quality. I believe that after this album is released, it won't let you down. Niu Meiling forced a smile and said, Okay, Murphy, have you recorded the demo? Yes. Mo Xiaowan was already prepared. She took out a disc and handed it over. You guys go back first. I'll listen to the song and give you an answer tomorrow, okay? Niu Meiling said kindly. Murphy nodded and left with Mo Xiaowan. Chapter 159. After she left, Niu Meiling and Jian Chua looked at each other speechlessly. It was Jian Chua who spoke first. She said unhappily, Sister Ling, this Mo Xiaowan is too much. Just because she's Murphy's relative, she doesn't care about us at all. Compared to Murphy and Mo Xiaowan, Jian Chua, who had been brought up by Niu Meiling, was more like one of them. Niu Meiling shook her head and said, Let's not talk about her. When the contract is renewed next year, I'll give Murphy a personal assistant. Mo Xiaowan can just focus on being her personal assistant. Jian Chua's eyes fell on the CD on Niu Meiling's desk. Her expression changed and she said, Sister Ling, let's listen to her song. Let's see if it's the real Mu Xiang. After Mo Fei spoke, Niu Meiling actually already had an answer in her heart. She also knew that Mo Fei rarely lied, but she still obeyed and handed the CD to Jian Chua. Jian Chua turned on the sound system that was embedded in the wall behind her and played it. When the first song was played, Niu Meiling and Jian Chua looked at each other in surprise. When the second song was played, they no longer had any doubts about Mu Ziyang's identity. The third song, before they finished listening, Niu Meiling had already stood up and turned off the sound system. Her face was gloomy. "Sister Ling, this is going to be difficult," Jian Chua said carefully. Niu Meiling sighed heavily. "I originally wanted to suppress her, but now with these songs, she's going to soar again," Jian Chua said unhappily. "How can this person be so lucky? Why doesn't my Zhen Zhen have a fan named Mu Ziyang?" Niu Meiling also had a headache. She wanted to take advantage of the last year of the contract to force Murphy to sign a new contract. Even Jian Chua didn't know that the reason why Murphy's album was so bad was because she had done something during the process of collecting the songs. Her wings have hardened. "She's going to fly," Niu Meiling murmured, her eyes flashing with a strange light. "Sister Ling, you said that almost every one of these 12 songs is very good. They can even be used as a main song for others." Jian Chua's eyes also flickered as she said, "Why don't we share a few songs? For example, this Crossing the Ocean to See You. I think it's very suitable for our Zhen Zhen's sweet voice." Niu Meiling frowned and looked at her. Jian Chua chuckled. He wasn't afraid at all. He leaned over and whispered in Niu Meiling's ear, "Anyway, this song was written by Mu Ziyang. If it's sent to our company, it will belong to our company. Give Zhen Zhen a few songs. This and that won't just sit there and watch. Everyone should be distributed. No matter what, we can reduce Murphy's chances of making a comeback." Niu Meiling narrowed her eyes and thought for a while. She waved her hand and asked Jian Chua to come closer. "I'll leave this to you. Do it well. Sister Ling, I say, if you want to do it, let's just do it." Jian Chua said boldly, "Didn't Murphy say that her fans wrote a song for her? Those documents should be sent back and forth by email. Let's bypass them and find Mu Ziyang. Or we can use Murphy's tone to send an email to Mu Ziyang and ask him to authorize our company." Niu Meiling's eyes lit up. She patted Jian Chua and said, "Let's do it. You go to the technical department. I'll call them later and ask them to fully cooperate with you." Yang Yi was about to email Chong Zi the high-definition illustration of the prison break that night. He didn't expect to receive an email from Murphy. But the wording was a bit strange. The beginning was, "Dear Mu Ziyang." This was a tone that had never been used before. Moreover, between the lines, it always gave people the feeling of a little girl acting coquettishly to her lover. This definitely wasn't Murphy. Yang Yi was too familiar with Murphy. With her personality, how could she act coquettishly? It shouldn't be Mo Xiaowan either. These days, Yang Yi had been chatting with Murphy. He knew that Mo Xiaowan was in control of her email account. She usually used it to deal with work. But Mo Xiaowan had never been so disgusting. Although this woman didn't treat Yang Yi well, and she was also a bit pretentious, she was definitely a proud and arrogant person. Her coldness came from her bones, which was exactly the opposite of Mo Fei. She probably wouldn't be able to act like a spoiled child in front of Mu Ziyang. More importantly, when Mo Xiaowan sent him an email without Murphy's knowledge, she didn't act coquettishly like this. "There's a problem." Yang Yi frowned and looked at the attachment on the computer. It was an electronic authorization letter from the Copyright Association. It indicated that the right to use the song was not authorized to Murphy, but to Tianmei Entertainment Company. He picked up his phone and dialed Mo Xiaojuan's number, not caring what time it was. The phone rang for a long time before it was picked up. In the end, Mo Xiaojuan's vague scolding came crashing down on him. "Hey! Who is it? Did you see what time it is? I want to sleep." Sure enough, Mo Xiaowan didn't remember Yang Yi's phone number. In the past, she probably didn't want to remember because she found it disgusting. Now, she probably didn't need it and forgot. "I'm Yang Yi." Yang Yi had to introduce himself. If he didn't say anything, Mo Xiaowan would probably hang up. Hey, brother-in-law, why are you calling me in the middle of the night? You have money? Mo Shaowan asked excitedly. Now, she was looking forward to Yang Yi's money to start a company. Oh. It hasn't arrived yet. I'll have to wait a few days. Yang Yi was referring to the money from selling the film rights of the 2 books. Oh. Mo Shaowan was disappointed when she heard that. She gave a perfunctory reply. I wanted to ask you, did you guys go back to the company today? Yang Yi asked. We went back to talk to Sister Ling. Mo Shaowan said lazily. However, since the conversation had started, Mo Shaowan continued, this woman has a problem. I don't know what she's doing. She clearly said that she would release a new album for Sister Fei once we gathered 12 songs. But she dragged it out and said that we'll talk about it tomorrow. Humph, but that's good. Tomorrow, I want to see their faces and let everyone be shocked. It's only 12 songs. I can gather them all. Mo Shaowan said proudly. Yang Yi roughly understood. He casually said a few words and hung up. When Mo Shaowan hung up, she was still a little confused. She muttered to herself, is there a problem? This person? Who would call their sister-in-law in the middle of the night? Could it be? After Yang Yi put down his phone, he coldly looked at the email on his computer. Murphy's situation was not good. The people in the company were scheming against each other, and she was also being dealt with by despicable means. Fortunately, the other party had bumped into him, and had been careful. He had to quickly earn money and let Mo Shaowan set up the studio. He had to save Murphy from the sea of bitterness as soon as possible. Of course, the first thing to do was to think of a way to fight back. They actually dared to trick my Murphy. Yang Yi decided that he would not let them have an easy time. Immediately, Yang Yi had an idea. However, he had to buy a new SIM card tomorrow. Chapter 160. Early in the morning, Yang Yi was confused by Shi. The little girl was very angry when she got up. She hugged her father's neck tightly and cried. She was so sad that she couldn't control herself. What's wrong? Tell me, why are you crying? Yang Yi comforted her with a headache and asked in confusion. After a while, Shi sobbed in her father's arms and said, My sweetheart is missing. Sweetheart was missing? When did that happen? Yang Yi remembered that when he came back from exercise in the morning, he made cat food and fed the kittens on the balcony. When he called them, they ran out from every corner. How is it missing? Aren't they fine at home? Yang Yi asked. I saw Sweetheart leave in a car, the little girl said with tears in her eyes and a pout. Yang Yi understood. He smiled and rubbed his daughter's little head and said, That's because you were dreaming. Come, now that you're awake, Dad will take you to see the kittens. In the living room, Yang Yi smiled and gently held Shi's little hand. He pointed and said, Come, Shi, look, aren't the kittens playing over there? The big little gray climbed up to the top of the cat tree and reached out to play with the hanging fluffy ball. But Shidu was docile. It lay on the middle, squinting its eyes and not moving. Shi opened her big red and swollen eyes and looked carefully for a while. She felt wronged again. My sweetheart is not here, it's missing. Yang Yi looked at his daughter's big eyes and said quickly, No, sweetheart must be at home. Come, Dad will look for it for you. In the past few days, Yang Yi had bought cat books to read. He almost understood the habits of cats, so he went to those small corners to look for it. After a while, he found it. Shi, come here. Look, Xiao Guai is here. Yang Yi half knelt on the ground and waved at Shi with a smile. The little girl was overjoyed. She quickly wiped her tears and ran over. Sure enough, she saw the kitten that had drilled into the small gap between the armrest of the sofa. The little guy was still secretly observing with his sparkling eyes. Xiao Guai, come out quickly. You almost scared me to death. Shi pouted and called out. As she had played with the kitten for a long time, Xiao Guai still came out when it saw her. Fortunately, Yang Yi didn't let go of these blind spots when he was cleaning at home, so the kitten didn't get any dust on its body. Otherwise, Yang Yi would never let Shi hold the kitten. Yang Yi couldn't help but smile at the sight of Shi hugging Xiao Guai so happily as if she had accomplished something great. Tianmei Entertainment. Today was the regular meeting for the week. Unless they couldn't leave, almost all the managers, including some artists who didn't have any jobs, had returned to the company to prepare for the meeting. Mo Xiaowan was also in Mo Fei's office, helping Mo Fei with her hair. You have to dress up beautifully today, and then appear on the stage in a dazzling manner. You have to blind their dog eyes. Humph, thinking about how those people had called Murphy an old woman, Mo Xiaowan was very angry. Of course, Mo Xiaowan wouldn't tell Murphy about these unhappy things. However, Murphy was a little absent-minded. After Mo Xiaowan was done, she picked up her phone and couldn't wait to open the message that had just rung. To be exact, it was a multimedia message. Mo Xiaowan saw it and pursed her lips unhappily. She felt that the daily PDA was really too much for her. Brother-in-law sent you something again? Is it a comic this time? Or a love letter? Actually, there was no need to ask. Looking at Murphy's happy smile, Mo Xiaowan knew that it was a comic. Yesterday, Yang Yi had sent a comic. Mo Xiaowan had seen it before. It was a little person holding up a crab, and the crab's pincers were in the shape of two hearts. The style was very rough and there was nothing redeeming about it. But with Yang Yi's handwritten words at the bottom, even a crab is in the shape of love for you, Mo Xiaowan felt that it was so mushy that she was about to have goosebumps. Let alone Mo Xiaowan, no one in this world had seen such an emoticon style before, so it looked very fresh. Of course, this kind of straightforwardness was also quite surprising. What would it be today? Mo Xiaowan originally refused to eat dog food, but she couldn't help but go over to take a look. Murphy happily shared it with her. She saw that it was still the ugly little person. This time, 2 dots were drawn as nostrils, and it looked even uglier. However, the little person's head was drawn with different sizes of hearts, and it was even painted with a pink color. Breathing the air of love for you every day. Mo Xiaowan read out the beautiful fountain pen words below and couldn't help but learn a northeastern dialect. Oh my God, this person, is there no end to it? Murphy covered her mouth and snickered at the side. Mo Xiaowan pouted and stuffed the phone back to Murphy. She said unhappily, I'm not looking anymore. You two can continue being lovey-dovey there. I'm speechless, I'm so disgusted by you two. Murphy giggled. In order not to agitate her single cousin, she didn't respond. However, she liked it very much. During this period, Yang Yi had been writing to her, and she kept all the things he sent her. She often secretly looked at them, and she felt full of energy all day long. Mo Xiaowan, what else can I do? With this cousin, I'm also very desperate to eat dog food every day. Ding dong. At this moment, Mo Xiaojuan's phone received a text message. Of course, Mo Xiaowan wouldn't receive any romantic text messages from men. Most of them were work-related, so Mo Xiaowan subconsciously picked up her phone and glanced at it. It was an unfamiliar number. However, the content of the message shocked her. I'm Mu Ziang. Open the email below and look at my new email. Mu Ziang sent her a text message? How did Mu Ziang know her number? Oh, yes. It was in her signature at the bottom of her previous emails. But why did Mu Ziang suddenly want her to look at the email? And he even gave her a new email and password? Mo Xiaojuan's head was full of question marks. Xiaowan, are you done? We have to go to the meeting. Murphy looked at the time and said. Mo Xiaowan sat in front of the computer and bent down to turn it on. Why are you turning on the computer? Murphy was confused. Mo Xiaowan waited for the computer to turn on, and said unhappily, Sis, why are you in such a hurry? Every time we have a meeting, you're always the first to arrive. Don't you look like a big sister? What's a big sister? A big sister is someone who wants everyone to wait for her, and has to put on airs. Murphy shook her head and said, No, I don't like to make others wait for me. Also, why do I have to put on airs as a big sister? Then I don't want to be a big sister. Mo Xiaowan rolled her eyes. She couldn't continue chatting with her cousin who was sometimes as stubborn as a cow. Chapter 161. Just as Murphy was about to go to the meeting, a familiar customer came to Yang Yi's coffee shop. Brother Yang, I, Fatty Gua, am back. Gua Zi, who was wearing a green military uniform, shouted excitedly as he pushed open the glass door. Yang Yi smiled and nodded in response. She waved at Gua Zi happily. Uncle Gua, come here, let me show you my little Guai. Gua Zi just realized that there were 3 more kittens in the shop. He was also someone who liked small animals, so he ran over and sat on the sofa, playing with the kittens with Shi. This is little Guai, yours is Papa's Dodo. Shi pointed at the little blue cat in Gua Zi's hand that was twisting restlessly. Shi also enthusiastically took out her little Guai and let Gua Zi touch it. She even looked at Gua Zi eagerly, wanting him to praise her kitten. You've gotten a lot more tanned. Yang Yi made a cup of coffee for Gua Zi and said casually. Of course, I went to Beijing to shoot a movie. Every day, I was exposed to the sun and rain. Sigh, Brother Yang, you don't know how hard it was. Gua Zi complained, tomorrow afternoon, I'll be dragged to military training. Sigh, I didn't come back for nothing. Yang Yi smiled and said, isn't it good to get a bit more tanned? You're always so delicate. How can a man be so delicate? Also, I don't think you're tanned enough. It's good that you'll be worn down during military training. Gua Zi rolled his eyes. He seriously doubted Yang Yi's taste. Actually, Brother Yang, I came to report yesterday, but I didn't come to play with you last night. Do you know why? Gua Zi said excitedly, guess where I went? Where did you go? Yang Yi was unmoved. You're not even guessing. How boring. Gua Zi felt very unhappy. However, he quickly adjusted himself and immediately said with a smile, I went to the bar to play and pestered a senior sister. She was working part-time at the bar, so I followed her and became her bodyguard. Are you going to have fun? Yang Yi raised his head and looked at Gua Zi. With your skills, who can you beat? He's even a bodyguard. If Gua Zi could understand that phrase, he would definitely shout, don't expose me, my brother. After finishing his coffee, Gua Zi had no intention of staying for dinner. He chuckled and said, all right, Brother Yang, I still have to help senior sister welcome the new students. I won't chat with you anymore. See you when I come back from military training. Although Gua Zi could be considered a warm-hearted person, his so-called helping senior sister welcome the newcomers was definitely not wholeheartedly helping. What else could there be? Of course, he wasn't referring to Ding Xiang. Ding Xiang was dark and skinny. She didn't fit Gua Zi's aesthetic standards. His goal was, of course, the Film Academy, Music Academy, and other schools with a high proportion of female students. Taking advantage of the new students' enrollment, he had to quickly determine the distribution of the new students' resources. Although, in terms of age, they were all his older sisters. At Qianmei's conference room, Murphy and Mo Xiaowan walked in at about the same time. There were quite a few people present, and there were also some empty seats. Sister Ling naturally hadn't arrived yet. Mo Fei's appearance still caused a small sensation. There were some small artists who looked at her with admiration, and there were also some people who had complicated expressions in their eyes. Among them was Zhan Zhen, a young, beautiful, and delicate female singer of the new generation. She was staring at Mo Fei with longing in her eyes. There was also a trace of jealousy hidden deep within. Yesterday, Jian Chua had already told her about the matter. After Zhan Zhen heard Murphy's demo, she was so jealous that she almost wanted to throw her recordings into the trash can. The difference was too big. If there was only one good song, it would be fine. But with 12 songs, every one of them was a masterpiece. How could others live? I'll try my best to get Coming Across the Ocean to See You, and a few other songs for you, Jian Chua comforted her. Zhan Zhan looked at her manager and asked ambitiously, why don't you snatch all of them? Anyway, Snatching one or two songs is the same as snatching all of them. Of course, it was good to think about it. Zhen Zhen's position wasn't stable yet. There was a group of people coveting it behind her. Jian Chua also used the same words to persuade Niu Meiling to dispel Zhen Zhen's thoughts. But now, looking at Murphy, Zhen Zhen couldn't help but feel jealous. Why don't I have a good fan? Why does she get all the good things? Zhen Zhen's gaze and some people's whispers didn't affect Murphy. She sat in her seat as if she didn't feel anything. Mo Xiaowan sat behind her with a briefcase tightly clamped between her legs. Not long after, Niu Meiling arrived. She had a meeting as usual and talked about the company's recent situation and achievements. She also praised some of the small stars who had made breakthroughs. Sister Ling's public praise was sometimes more useful than winning some awards. Looking at their excited expressions, Mo Xiaowan secretly curled her lips. You've never seen the world. Just as Mo Xiaowan was waiting anxiously and wanted to ask if she should talk about Murphy's new album, Niu Meiling finally said, "Let's talk about Murphy's new album now." Murphy's new album? Didn't it just come out? Many small stars and managers who weren't qualified to hear the news were suddenly in an uproar. They looked at each other excitedly and started discussing. Ahem. Quiet. This time, Niu Meiling interfered. The main reason I gave Murphy a new album was because I promised before that as long as Murphy could save up 12 songs, I would agree to give her the resources to produce a new album. I didn't expect Murphy to be so capable. She actually found Mu Ziang and wrote 12 songs for her. Tisk tsk. Niu Meiling's tone was a little cold. She even seemed to be mocking and ridiculing. Mu Ziang. She only wrote 2 songs for Chan Yijie and 12 songs for us. Every one of them is wonderful. Mu Ziang. At this moment, after Niu Meiling's reminder, everyone remembered the meaning of this name. Suddenly, there was another uproar. The way they looked at Mo Fei was filled with admiration, shock, and of course, envy, jealousy, and hatred. Niu Meiling waited for everyone to quiet down a little before she laughed and said, "I, Niu Meiling, am famous in the industry for being a man of my word. Since I've agreed to something, I can't go back on my words, right?" Murphy sat there and smiled. She felt that this Sister Ling was still the same person she knew. She still treated her well. "My dear sister. You're such a sweet and naive girl." Mo Xiaowan, who was sitting behind, saw Murphy's reaction clearly. She couldn't help but secretly curl her lips. It's about time for her to give herself away, right? Sure enough, Mo Xiaowan, who had been watching from the corner of her eye, stood up. "Sister Ling, I'm sorry. I have a few words to say." "What does Jian Chao want to say?" Jian Chua smiled slightly, looked around, and said, "Yesterday, I listened to Mo Fei's demo with Sister Ling. What Sister Ling said was not wrong at all. These 12 songs, each one of them is very exciting. It can be said that any one of these songs can be the main title of any album under Tian Mei. Then, isn't it a bit of a waste to put all 12 songs on one album?" Jian Chao revealed her true intentions. She ignored Murphy's shocked expression and said to Niu Meiling, "Sister Ling, there are so many people in our company who are looking forward to releasing a new album to make a name for themselves. Including our Zhen Zhen. Zhen Zhen is also taking jobs day and night. We just want to see when we can make a name for ourselves. Why don't we allocate our resources reasonably and divide these 12 songs among ourselves and give our company a few more big stars? Isn't that a better thing?" Jian Chua smiled. Chapter 162. What do you mean? Niu Meiling asked, "How do we split it?" Sister Ling's reaction wasn't to reprimand, but to be more interested in understanding. Mo Fei was so surprised that she only looked at Niu Meiling closely. She still had a glimmer of hope that Sister Ling might object later. "What I mean is, isn't our Zhen Zhen also preparing her new album? Why don't Zhen Zhen take out 3 or 4 songs from her album and exchange it with Murphy?" Jian Chao smiled. "Anyway, there are so many classic songs. It doesn't matter if there are a few missing, but it will be of great help to our Zhen Zhen." Zhan Muqian stood up cooperatively with a warm smile on his face. He smiled intimately. Zhen wants to thank Sister Murphy for her help. Help your head. Mo Xiaowan vomited in her heart. She felt that this woman was really hypocritical. She even acted out a palace drama. As soon as Zhan Muqian's voice fell, several agents who had already discussed this matter with each other also stood up one after another and began to compete for songs for their artists. One song after another, it was as if Mo Fei had opened a supermarket here. Our Yu hasn't released an album yet, but it's scheduled for next year. Can you leave a song for our Yu? When our Yu becomes famous, she will definitely be grateful to everyone. Even though they hadn't made an agreement, some small artists' agents couldn't help but speak up. Ahem, everyone quiet down. If we decide to do this, the company will definitely allocate these resources reasonably. Even if we can't, we can ask Mr. Mu Ziang to write a few more songs for us. Niu Meiling smiled with a red face. Finally, she seemed to have thought of Murphy. She turned her head and looked at Murphy. She smiled and asked, Murphy, what do you think of Jian Chao's proposal? Of course, the company won't treat you unfairly. We will do our best to help you collect songs and fill the remaining gaps. Murphy's pretty face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. Her entire person exuded a cold aura. She really didn't expect that Sister Ling wouldn't speak up for her. No. Murphy stared at Sister Ling for a long time before saying word by word, "This is my song." Jian Chua laughed. Yes, it's your song, but aren't you also part of the company? You have to listen to the company's arrangements. Besides, the company didn't say that they won't release an album for you. If you take a step back, won't the company give you more resources to help you make the album better and do more publicity? Murphy is so angry that she has clenched her fists under the table. She is not the kind of person who likes to quarrel with people loudly. Otherwise, she will really open her mouth to scold. How shameless! Mo Xiaowan scolded on her behalf. Mo Xiaowan, who are you talking about? Jian Chua was caught off guard. I'm scolding you, and I'm scolding you for taking advantage of my misfortune. Mo Xiaowan stood up and confronted Jian Chua across the table. She shouted angrily, "These songs were written by Mu Ziang for our Murphy. What right do you have to snatch them?" Mo Xiaowan still wanted to continue scolding. "I think, if jealousy is a disease, I'm afraid you'll all be lying in the hospital." Murphy tugged at Mo Xiaojuan's clothes, but this time she didn't let Mo Xiaowan give up. Instead, she said softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "It seems like jealousy is a disease." She was very serious, as if discussing a scientific question. The conference room was silent. After a while, Niu Meiling coughed and tried to smooth things over. "You can't say that. The company is only thinking about the big picture and allocating so many high-quality songs. Murphy, you have to understand Sister Ling's difficulties." Murphy shook her head. She suppressed her emotions and said, "No, Sister Ling, I'm not stupid. These songs were not collected by the company for me. We asked Mu Ziang to write the songs, but we didn't use the company's connections or the company's funds. When did it become the company's resources?" Jian Chua scolded, "Murphy, you're too arrogant. Aren't you people from the company? Do you still listen to the company's arrangements?" Then, she gritted her teeth and showed her unfinished trump card. "As far as I know, you didn't sign a contract with Mu Ziang. Mu Ziang didn't say that these songs were written for you." "Oh, how did you know?" Mo Xiaowan laughed and asked sarcastically. "This." Jian Chua was at a loss for words, but she still found a lie. "You're not the only one who knows about Mu Ziang. We naturally have his contact information." "Oh." Mo Xiaowan laughed and said, "Mu Ziang didn't say that these songs were written for us. Did he write them for the company?" Jian Chua braced herself and said, "That's right. We contacted Mu Ziang last night and prepared to sign these 12 songs with him under the company's name. So these 12 songs will belong to the company's resources." Jian Chua saw the surprise on Murphy's face, but she was disappointed because she didn't see the panic on Mo Xiaojuan's face. Mo Xiaojuan's expression was very calm, so calm that she felt that something was wrong. If that's the case, Murphy, you'll have to suffer a little. But don't mind it. How could Sister Ling let you suffer? I promise to invest the most resources for you and let your new album become a hit. Niu Meiling said with a smile. Murphy couldn't tell if she was sad, disappointed, or desperate. But her expression was still cold, and no one could see any fluctuations. Zhenzhen was still very young. She was very nervous just now, but now she was finally relieved. She smiled proudly and felt that the situation was settled. However, Mo Xiaowan smiled. She turned around and picked up her briefcase from the chair behind her. She took out a stack of printed papers and waved them in front of him. I'm afraid you'll have to take a look at this. Mo Xiaowan said proudly, this is the electronic authorization letter that Mu Ziyang sent to us, and it clearly states that Murphy is the beneficiary of the right to sing these 12 songs, and she's the only one authorized. Murphy was a little surprised. She saw Mo Xiaowan print out these printed papers before the meeting, but she was so focused on the things that Yang Yi sent her that she didn't pay attention to what it was. Mu Ziyang sent them an electronic authorization letter? How come she didn't know? Jian Chua's eyes widened. She quickly grabbed it and looked at it. The format was exactly the same as the one she sent to Mu Ziyang last night. Of course, it was also the standard template of the copyright organization, but Mu Ziyang signed the electronic seal, and the party B on it changed from Tianmei Entertainment to Murphy, and there was an additional note. If it's not our Murphy singing these songs, this authorization will be considered invalid. Mo Xiaowan kindly reminded her, the copyright organization will punish the infringer severely. Niu Meiling looked at Jian Chua with a puzzled look, but the latter could only smile bitterly. Well, we can discuss this with Mu Ziyang, right? Murphy, I think you should take the overall situation into consideration, Niu Meiling said with a laugh. I won't. Mo Fei shook her head firmly. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the conference room became awkward. He. Mo Xiaowan didn't intend to let Jian Chua go. She stretched out her finger, pointed at Jian Chua, and said with a smile, this problem is actually very easy to solve. Doesn't Jian Chua know Mu Ziyang? Let her ask Mu Ziyang to write a few more songs, then we'll have enough to share. Does she need to look at our Murphy songs so eagerly? Jian Chua's mood was very complicated at the moment. She was bitter, angry, and helpless. But facing Mo Xiaojuan's provocation, she really had something to say, but she didn't know whether to say it or not. Chapter 163. In the end, Niu Meiling was still Sister Ling. She smoothly resolved the awkward situation in front of her. It's okay. Since Mr. Mu Ziyang has already stated that it has to be Murphy, then we still have to respect the wishes of the composer. Anyway, it's Murphy's turn to sing. Keeping the goodies within the family is something to be happy about. Ha ha ha, yes, Sister Ling is right. Jian Chua awkwardly smiled and sat down. Sister Chow. Zhenzhen couldn't hold it in. She anxiously tugged at Jian Chua's clothes as she watched the duck fly away. However, how could Jian Chua be in the mood to comfort her? Niu Meiling acted calmly, as if nothing had happened just now. She waved her hand in a very imposing manner, made a conclusion, and said, okay, no matter what, your Sister Ling still means what she says. Sister Ling, from today onwards, the planning department, the public relations department, all departments pay attention to me. Mobilize resources, record recordings, shoot the MV, and the early stage hype. Mo Fei's new album must be put into action. Murphy looked at Sister Ling. It was as if the ice had melted a little as she gently nodded her head. However, only she knew that today's matter had left a grudge in her heart. The unfamiliar Sister Ling that made her tremble was no longer the same person she remembered. After the meeting was adjourned, Murphy and Mo Xiaowan were speechless the entire way. When they returned to their office, Mo Xiaowan proudly showed off to her cousin. Sister, you don't know. I've been unhappy with that Jian Chua for a long time. Today, I can finally give her a slap in the face. It's too satisfying. Murphy shook her head. She sat down tiredly and said, I didn't expect Sister Ling to help them. I really didn't expect it. It's too disappointing. Mo Shaowan rolled her eyes and said, Sister, why are you still so naive? Can't you see that Sister Ling is acting? If it wasn't for Sister Ling's nod, would Jian Chua dare to steal our song so blatantly? Maybe this was arranged by Sister Ling. It can't be. Murphy deeply frowned and hesitated for a moment before saying, How can it not be? Wasn't Jian Chua there yesterday? In the end, something like this happened in a meeting, and so many people followed suit. I don't believe that there's nothing fishy going on behind the scenes. Mo Shaowan waved her hand and said, And I also specially observed Sister Ling's expression. This Niu Meiling, I didn't see any surprise on her face from beginning to end. She clearly already knew. Mo Shaowan said angrily. No matter what, since things have come to this, let's not pursue the matter any further. If things get out of hand, we won't be able to be friends anymore. Murphy tugged at Mo Shaowan and tried to persuade her. Who wants to be friends with her? Sister, let me tell you, if it wasn't for Mu Ziang's vigilance, we would have fallen into their trap. Mo Shaowan said hatefully. Yes, you printed those agreements before the meeting. I forgot to ask you. Did Mu Ziang ask you to make the call? What's going on? Murphy asked curiously. Mo Shaowan proudly pulled Mo Fei to the computer, took out her phone, and explained to Mo Fei, I received a text message from an unknown number this morning. It was from Mu Ziang. He told me that there was a problem, so he asked me to log in to a newly registered email address. Then he sent an email to that email address. The attachment was our stack of authorization, and there were also a few screenshots. Look, I don't know who used our email account to send an email to Mu Ziang, and the content was so mushy. Later, I checked our email account, and the traces were cleaned up, but I guessed it was done by someone from the company. Luckily, it was too mushy. Mu Ziang knew something was wrong, so he sent us the authorization. Mo Shaowan proudly said, I'll just hide it and wait for Jian Chua, that bitch, to give her a slap in the face. Murphy frowned and looked at the email carefully. She was relatively calm, so she saw a problem. Shaowan, how do you think Mu Ziang knew that Sister Ling and the others wanted to steal our song? Mo Shaowan hadn't considered this question before. Now that Murphy brought it up, she scratched her head. Yeah, how did he know? Maybe it was because we don't know who sent the email, so Mu Ziang figured it out. Mo Shaowan guessed. That email didn't give much information. Mo Shaowan shook her head. Right, that phone number. Have you contacted Mu Ziang? No matter what, he helped us so much. We should thank him. Mo Shaowan spread her hands and helplessly said, No, I tried calling back, but the phone was turned off. I tried a few times. Why didn't he pick up? Murphy frowned. I don't know. This person is so mysterious. It's like he's afraid that we know him. Mo Shaowan curled her lips. Afraid? Murphy seemed to have caught a clue. Yeah. Chen Yijie has seen him. We told him a few times, but he didn't want to show up. Mo Shaowan snorted. Murphy seemed to have been possessed by Conan in that instant and blurted out, Maybe it's because we know him? Mo Shaowan snickered. Could it be that he's also a member of our company? But the possibility is too small. Actually, I'm more willing to believe that he's too ugly and doesn't want to show up. Murphy was led astray by her. She smiled and patted her head. Don't talk about others like that. After all, he's our benefactor. While they were talking and laughing, Niu Meiling's office was filled with dark clouds. Sister Ling, Mo Shaowan and Murphy have really grown up. You can't indulge them. Jian Chua exclaimed. Sigh, Zhenzhen just cried to me for a long time. She said that she still wants to sing, Coming Across the Ocean to See You. She can't bear to do it. Go tell Murphy. If she agrees, I have no objections, Niu Meiling said coldly. Jian Chua changed her mind. She laughed and said, "Nah, I was just teaching her a lesson. How could there be such a good thing nowadays? Murphy, that be *tch, is so stingy. She eats meat and doesn't give others soup." Niu Meiling snorted. "Sister Ling, are you going to release Murphy's new album for her just like that? If it's a hit, the next time we sign a contract, we'll have to sign a top contract. What money are we going to earn?" Jian Chua said carefully. Niu Meiling frowned and didn't respond. "Why don't we just give her some resources? Anyway, whether she can become a hit or not depends on her luck." Jian Chua instigated. "Zhen Zhen is also going to release a new album. You should put in more effort. Zhen Zhen is such a good child. Even if she becomes a hit, she won't forget her roots. Moreover, her contract still has 4 to 5 years. If we push her out, our company's interests will be the greatest." Niu Meiling looked at Jian Chua deeply and saw through her selfishness. However, this statement wasn't wrong. In terms of return, it was better to push a new person up than to let Murphy, who had signed a top contract, do the same. Chapter 164. Soft music and soft light made today's coffee shop seem extra warm. As the students returned to school, Yang Yi's business began to gradually become lively. However, his focus was still on Shi. The little girl was like a leader, running around the shop while giggling, and behind her were 3 kittens. The 3 kittens were at an age where they were full of the desire to explore the world, and the energetic little girl was their best playmate. "Papa, I want to go to the amusement park and ride the bumper cars," the little girl said while panting slightly and drinking the milk made by her father. She wasn't very tired playing with the kittens, but she was sweating a little, and a few strands of hair stuck to her delicate little face. Yang Yi took out her towel and wiped the sweat on the little girl's face. Then he took out a dry towel and stuffed half of it into Shi's back, and the other half hung on her little vest. "Didn't you go to play a while ago?" Yang Yi smiled and said, "You can't go every day, you have to go every once in a while." "Okay, then next time we have to bring Xiao Guai, Xiao Hui, and Dondo together." She tilted her little head and thought for a while, then said, "They will be obedient." This was a big problem. Could pets be allowed in the amusement park? However, Yang Yi still nodded to his daughter calmly. If it wasn't allowed, then they wouldn't bring them? Humph. In front of Yang Yi, whether or not to follow the rules was just a matter of mood. "We have an activity tonight. Let's pick up your mother first, then we'll go shopping for clothes and school bags," Yang Yi said to his daughter. She was about to enter school, and Murphy discussed with Yang Yi that they would prepare everything for Shi tonight. She had just finished dealing with the company's affairs, and she didn't have to rush for work for the time being. Shi was at such a critical moment, so she had to accompany her. Of course, if Murphy also went shopping, Yang Yi still had to disguise her. "Okay. Shi misses Mom so much." The little girl jumped excitedly and said sweetly, "Last night, I even dreamed of Mom." "Papa, do you miss Mom?" Yang Yi laughed and rubbed the little fellow's head. "What do you think?" "Of course." Shi giggled. Ding. Another guest came. Shi obediently took the kittens to the side to play. Yang Yi looked up and saw 2 young men with guitars on their backs. Their faces were quite young, and they didn't have long hair like those young people who often played music. They had normal hairstyles, and their clothes were very simple. There were no fancy decorations on their bodies. He felt more like a student from Zhongqing Media University. "What would the 2 of you like to drink?" Perhaps it was because he felt a sense of familiarity when he saw them carrying guitars. Yang Yi took the initiative to greet them. "Ah Shu, it seems a little expensive." The slightly taller young man looked at the handwritten menu on the small blackboard, hesitated for a moment, and whispered to his companion. Yang Yi's ears were more sensitive, and he heard their whispers. "It's a little expensive, but it's our first time earning money. Can we celebrate?" The young man named Ashu said with a smile. "Okay, you decide." The slightly taller young man seemed to be quite shy. After he finished speaking, He took half a step back and let his companion face Yang Yi. Ah Shu took out a handful of loose money from the pocket of his jeans, counted 60 yuan, handed it over, and said, "Let's order 2 mochas." "Are you 2 singers?" Yang Yi didn't take the money, but looked at them with interest. Ah Shu scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "I don't think we are singers. We are actually students of Zhongchuan." Just because of interest, the 2 of us formed a small group called 1,000 Mile Creek Tree. Yang Yi was speechless. This group name was really strange. The slightly taller young man also opened his mouth at this time and explained, "It's because we both have a character in our names. My name is Miao Chuan, and his name is Lu Xiaoshu." The meaning of 1,000 mile has 2 meanings. The first meaning is that if fate brings us together, we will meet even if we are thousands of miles apart. Miao Chuan's hometown is in the north, and mine is in the south. I didn't expect that fate would bring us together in Jiangqing. Lu Xiaoshu smiled and said, "The second meaning is that we will fly 1,000 miles. We don't expect to fly 1,000 miles, as long as our group can become famous and fulfill our music dreams." Okay. Yang Yi actually felt that their dream was quite good, and the meaning given to the group name was also very realistic. It was just that he felt that something was wrong. "I think there is still hope. Yesterday, we were invited to perform and earn some money. We want to celebrate." Lu Xiaoshu's face was filled with a happy smile. It was a very simple happiness. Yang Yi smiled and pushed back the money that Lu Xiaoshu handed over. He said, "Since you like music and it's your first time here, how about this? Sing a song for me, and I will give you a free meal. How about it? Is it too cheap?" Yang Yi asked cautiously, worried that these 2 guys would be too embarrassed to ask. "How could it be?" Lu Xiaoshu was very happy. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Actually, we didn't earn much. The boss only gave us 100 yuan each after singing for a day." Miao Chuan was worried that Yang Yi would be unhappy after hearing this, so he pulled Lu Xiaoshu and whispered, "Why did you tell us all about our background?" Yang Yi didn't care. He turned off the sound system and said with a smile, "Come on, you guys sing. I'll make coffee for you and listen to it." The coffee shop suddenly quieted down. A few customers sitting in the booth were still not used to it. They raised their heads and looked over. Shishi also ran over and looked at these 2 people curiously. The 3 kittens behind her were a little slower, but they also followed behind. Shaduo ran a little too fast and couldn't stop, so it bumped into Little Gray. The little kitten was dizzy and pitifully peaked. Unfortunately, its owner didn't notice. "We sing folk songs." "Well, if the boss doesn't mind, we can sing an original song for you," Lu Xiaoshu said. The 2 took off the guitars behind their backs, hung them in front of their chests, and got into a good position. Yang Yi smiled and spread out his right hand, making a please gesture. His fingertips plucked the strings of the guitar. After a delicate prelude, Lu Xiaoshu opened his mouth and sang, "I'm lost in the winter in the north, wandering in the boundless wilderness, watching a few groups of geese fly away, thinking of her. The face that can't come back." Miao Chuan also played the guitar at the side and sang along. "Hey, it's quite nice." Yang Yi was a little surprised, but he still couldn't help but stop what he was doing and listen carefully. Just as Lu Xiaoshu said, Qianli Chuanshu and the others sang a very authentic folk song style. The lyrics were a little rough, but the tune they played was so delicate that it made people's hearts tremble. Of course, untrained singing skills were the same as a normal singer's, green and pale. However, Lu Xiaoshu's voice was very good. It was as clean as the northern winter sky he sang about. Chapter 165. Don't ask me when I'll cross the mountains and rivers, cross the grassland, and come to your side. Because that's today. Lu Xiaoshu's affectionate humming finally received applause from the customers in the coffee shop. Yang Yi also smiled and applauded them. "Thank you. Thank you." Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan put their palms together and thanked the audience. They were a little nervous at first, but they were overjoyed when they finally got the affirmation. Their young faces were filled with happy smiles. "You guys sang very well," a young voice interrupted. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan looked down and saw a delicate and cute little girl. She was wearing a long shirt with a woven skirt, looking bright and pretty. They knew that she was the boss's daughter, so they scratched their heads and smiled embarrassedly. They could even be praised by a child. Our she rarely praises people, which means that your song is really well written. What's your name? Yang Yi rubbed his daughter's hair lovingly, then raised his head and asked with a smile. She felt that she was praised by her father in front of outsiders, so she was happy and shy. She giggled, pulled down her father's big hand, turned around, and ran away. Xiao Guai and Shida followed closely behind. Little Gray, who had curiously drilled into the bar and was nibbling on Yang Yi's trousers, turned its ears. It heard the movement and quickly ran out to catch up with its friends. This song is called "I Miss Her in the Winter in the North." It was written by Ah Chuan. Lu Xiaoshu quickly replied. Ah Shu also participated in the composition. He's very good at arranging. There was a company that wanted him to be an arranger before. Miao Chuan also praised his partner. As Yang Yi brewed coffee for them, he smiled and said, "Oh, is that so? Why not?" Lu Xiaoshu said embarrassedly, "I don't really want to be an arranger. I still prefer to sing." Your voice is very good." Yang Yi nodded and said, "It's a pity that you don't sing." Actually, Yang Yi was a little envious of Lu Xiaoshu's voice. He could basically sing all kinds of folk songs, and his singing was no worse than the original singer. Just like how many people liked Swali's version of Miss Dong, the clean voice of a young male singer was more attractive than that of an old man. "The problem is that he's ugly," Lu Xiaoshu said helplessly. "I sent a sample to the record company in the past, and they wanted me to try it out. But when they saw the real person, they shook their heads and said that this face wasn't suitable to be a star." Indeed, Lu Xiaoshu looked very ordinary. He was not particularly ugly, but he was definitely not handsome. In comparison, Yang Yi could still be called a handsome man in the past, but Lu Xiaoshu was not handsome in any era. Miao Chuan was the same. The two of them were probably in the same boat. Yang Yi did not like comforting adults. He felt that adults should have their own perseverance, but he still said reluctantly, "It's okay. The road of music has never been smooth. Stick to your dreams and keep going. I believe you will succeed." "Thank you." Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan both nodded. Yang Yi had already finished the work at hand. He brought out 2 cups of hot, white coffee. "Santos, my treat. Have a taste." Santos was much more expensive than mocha. Lu Xiaoshu was stunned for a moment, but he still nodded freely and said with a smile, "Okay, thank you boss." "Right." Yang Yi stopped them and said with a smile, "About the song you just sang, I have an immature suggestion. Of course, if you think it is inappropriate, you can ignore it. That is, you can consider changing the long string of melody at the end, which is a little flashy. I think it would be better to have a clean 2 or 3 sound loops to make a lingering sound." This suggestion immediately made Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan fall into deep thought. Sure enough, they were 2 guys who were obsessed with music. They forgot to respond to Yang Yi and went to a booth with their coffee in a daze. Then, they sat facing each other and pondered. Yang Yi shook his head and did not care. On the other side, after a while, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan came back to their senses. "Ah Chuan, it seems that what the boss said is quite reasonable." Lu Xiaoshu's fingers were floating on the table, as if he was plucking the strings of an instrument. "Yes, it's not your fault. When I was writing, I wanted to make the feelings more intense at the end, so there were some elements of rock and roll." Miao Chuan nodded. "Hey, drink the coffee. Don't let it get cold later." Lu Xiaoshu helped Miao Chuan open the sugar jar and added sugar. "But I'm quite surprised. I didn't expect the boss to know so much about music. I just don't know if he knows how to write songs. I really want to communicate with him." Now, the shop was playing records again. The surround hi-fi sound system vividly reflected the beautiful melody of the pure music. Some customers were intoxicated by it and did not want to leave. It shouldn't be, right? Miao Chuan took a sip of coffee and his eyes suddenly lit up. The taste of the coffee in Santos was very good. The bitterness and acidity were moderate. Moreover, Yang Yi used the freshest coffee beans. After drinking it, there was a lingering fragrance in the mouth, as if there was a natural fragrance of lemon, grape, apple and other fruits. Miao Chuan continued, "People who like to listen to songs may not necessarily write songs. But I think the boss is a person with a dream of music. He encouraged us just now and said it very well." "Yes." Lu Xiaoshu was busy tasting the coffee. He knew a little about it. After smelling it and tasting it, he was too busy to talk. At night, Yang Yi drove the car with Shi to pick up Murphy. After not seeing her for a few days, he missed her. However, when Yang Yi looked at Murphy affectionately, Murphy could not help but laugh when she saw him. Then, she laughed so hard that she held her stomach and squatted on the ground, unable to stand up. This made Yang Yi laugh inexplicably. He touched his face and found that there was no rice grain stuck to it. "Mom, does your stomach hurt?" She could not help but look at her mother and ask worriedly. How would they know? Murphy was laughing because she remembered the comic picture that Yang Yi sent her as usual this morning. It was still the series of "I love you." However, this time, the white little person was sticking out her but cheekily with a heart floating behind her, but even fart is in the shape of "I love you." In the morning, she was convulsing with Mo Xiaowan laughing so hard that she almost had cramps. After picking up Murphy, Yang Yi disguised her as usual. Although she still looked very beautiful, at least she would not be recognized as Murphy. "Well, I still don't like Mama's appearance." Cece read to the end and pouted. "Mama is actually pretty." Murphy raised her head slightly and looked at Yang Yi with some pride. Her eyes told him, "See, I'm still a natural beauty. I look good." Yang Yi looked at Murphy's eyes and thought of something. He opened the glove compartment in the car and took out a pair of thin glasses that looked like normal glasses. He put them on Murphy and said, "Okay, no one will recognize you like this. I guarantee that even if Mo Xiaowan stood in front of you, she wouldn't be able to recognize you. These glasses are a bit ugly." Although they were plain, Murphy could not help but nitpick. "That's why I want it to look ordinary. If you wear those exaggerated glasses, I'm afraid that there will be more people looking back to see if you are a celebrity." Yang Yi explained seriously. "Okay, straight man." Chapter 166. Yang Yi's tyrannical wolf drove to the underground parking lot of the Haihong shopping mall in Binhai district. Including the last concert, this was the second time that Murphy swaggered in public with her child. She couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Murphy tightly grasped the shoulder strap of her bag, her palms sweating a little. "Come, I'll hold your hand." Yang Yi locked the car door, walked around, and said gently. In an instant, Murphy seemed to have returned to the day of the concert, when Yang Yi also held her hand and supported her. "Papa also has to hold my hand. It's a little dark here, I'm scared." She followed her father closely with small steps. She timidly looked back at the depths of the parking lot, where the lights were dim, as if a big monster was lying in ambush. "No problem." Yang Yi held his daughter's hand with his right hand, and without any explanation, his left hand pulled Murphy's hand over. Murphy was a little hesitant, but she didn't struggle. The two of them were still holding hands when they walked into the mall. Although they maintained a suitable distance, holding hands seemed to be a normal action that they were used to doing. She, on the other hand, couldn't hold back her excitement when she arrived at the brightly lit shopping mall. She broke away from her father's big hand and ran at the front. "Papa, Mom, come quickly." The little girl's laughter was like a silver coin gently hitting a bell, crisp and pleasant. The little girl wore small running shoes and ran on the mirror-like smooth tiles of the shopping mall. After a while, she staggered a few steps and had a lot of fun. As if infected by her daughter's happiness, Murphy's nervous and cold face melted like spring snow, revealing a slight smile. She took the initiative and pulled Yang Yi's hand, blinked and said, "Why don't you walk faster?" She went to kindergarten, which was similar to going to school. From morning to afternoon, including lunch, she would be picked up by her father in the evening. Therefore, Murphy had already made a list of things to buy for she when she went to kindergarten. For example, a small school bag. Although there would be no textbooks in it, Murphy felt that she would look good with a small school bag on her back. And there was a small school bag, which could be used to store other things, such as the next lunchbox to buy. She had her lunch in kindergarten. This kindergarten encouraged children to bring their own lunches, which was a bit like the Japanese lunchbox culture. Yang-yi felt that it was quite good. He prepared lunch for his daughter, which was clean and healthy. Moreover, Cece loved to eat her father's cooking. She would never get tired of it. Of course, Yang-yi spent a lot of effort preparing the 3 meals every day. He tried different ways to make delicious food for his daughter. How could he be tired of it? We need to buy 2 lunchboxes. You prepare 2 lunches for she. When the other children want to try it, she can share it with them, Murphy said to Yang-yi as she picked out the lunchboxes. She wanted she to be a generous person. She wanted her to not be stingy and learn to share. Of course, Yang-yi also hoped that she would be liked by the other children. However, he was a man, so he did not consider everything. Murphy still hoped that she could share and eat until she was full. "Mom, let's buy this." She was also picking. She took a lunchbox from an unknown shelf. Obviously, she was attracted by the cartoon cat pattern on it. Murphy took it and opened it to look at the internal structure. In the end, she shook her head and said, "This is not good. There are no layers. The rice and dishes have to be separated. The vegetables and meat also have to be separated." She pouted unhappily. Murphy asked her to put it back, but the little girl was not willing to. Yang-yi smiled. He took the lunchbox, took Shishi's hand, and said, "It's okay. Let's choose the style first, and then find one with the same pattern for Shishi." He understood the little girl's thoughts better. Shishi's eyes suddenly lit up and she asked happily, "Really? Can we really?" "Of course." Yang-yi rubbed his daughter's head and said, "Of course, we have to buy a pattern that Shishi likes." Papa is the best." The little girl smiled sweetly. Murphy, who was dissatisfied with Yang-yi's deliberate flattery of her daughter, curled her lips and reached out to pinch the soft flesh on Yang-yi's waist. As a result, it was hard and almost hurt her hand. Not only did they buy the lunchbox, but Murphy was also very thoughtful. She also went to find a small medicine bag, which seemed to be specially assembled for children. It was a very small box, with cartoon band-aids for children and disinfectant cotton swabs. However, there was no medicine, because the medicine could not be carried by children. It was not much, and it was very light and easy to carry. "This thing is not necessary, is it?" Yang-yi frowned and said to Murphy, "In kindergarten, there are teachers looking after her. Do you want she to be a doctor? What if she gets hurt?" Murphy asked him. Yang-yi suddenly frowned and said fiercely, "Who dares to hurt my she? I'll chop him with a knife." Mo-fei rolled her eyes grumpily and said, "What the hell are you doing? What I mean is, what if Cece accidentally got injured and bumped into something by herself? She's not at home. There will always be times when she can't take care of herself." Yang-yi scratched his head and said in confusion, "But if you buy these, she won't know how to use them." Murphy thought for a moment, picked up another bag, threw it into the shopping basket, and said with satisfaction, "Now, take one bag and teach her how to use it." Although they were all women who were not afraid of tiring when shopping, she did not have the patience to slowly pick with Murphy. The little girl ran out and ran back, not stopping for a moment. At this time, Murphy stayed a little longer. She could not help but drag her father's hand. "Papa, let's go to the front and watch." How could she drag Yang-yi? However, he was afraid that she would fall, so he hurriedly took 2 steps forward. He looked back at Murphy helplessly. "You go first." Murphy covered her mouth and laughed. I'll find you after I buy these. After getting used to not being watched, Murphy also became bold and went shopping by herself. Murphy bought new towels and new milk bottles for She. The shopping basket was full, not all of them were used, and some were spare, before she went to find Yang-e. It was not difficult to find. This children's products supermarket was still a little different from a real supermarket. After all, there were not so many varieties. Murphy soon found the father and daughter in the clothing area. She was trying on hats. Yang-e was holding several hats that she had tried on. There were knitted ski hats that were not suitable for this season, hard straw hats that were very fashionable, but she did not like the feeling of the hard straw hats, and a women's fisherman's hat that Chan Fengchen had worn before. She was trying on a bell-shaped hat with a white body and a blue band. Its size was specially made for little girls. When she wore it, it was just enough to cover her bangs without covering her face. Today, Yang-e had tied a dignified and beautiful princess hairstyle for the little girl, which was just right for this hat. She stood in front of the mirror and refused to move. Wasn't the beautiful and elegant little girl in the mirror her? This hat is very beautiful. She, are you going to wear this hat to see the children the day after tomorrow? Murphy asked with a smile. Our little princess has grown up and knows how to dress up. Mom, don't say that. She was a little embarrassed and went into her mother's arms. Chapter 167. Sister Murphy, this is Ju Jie. Didn't you come to the company today? In the morning, Murphy received a phone call. That disgusting and flattering voice made her good mood disappear. She had planned to read the Shape of Love comic that Yang-e had drawn himself, but Murphy lost interest. Who pissed you off? Yang-e came back with the kittens' food bowls. He had just taken them to clean up. After all, he had fed them once in the morning, and the kittens were very picky. The leftover cat food had to be thrown away. If it was left in the air for too long, the taste would change, and then they wouldn't like to eat it. Ju Jie, the disgusting person that the company secretly arranged the scandal last time. Murphy rarely complained to others, even to Mo Shaowan. When she was bullied by Yang-e in the past, she silently endured it in her heart. However, she didn't know why, but now in front of Yang-e, she had a desire to talk. Yang-e frowned. In his mind, a guy with a pretty face appeared. In the photo, his smile was very annoying. Yang-e asked, "What's wrong with him now?" Didn't I tell you yesterday that the company knew that my 12 songs were written by Mu Xiang, and wanted to give them to other singers? Fortunately, Mu Xiang found out and solved this problem with Shaowan early. Murphy said, at that time, Ju Jie went to record a show, so he wasn't in the company. Now that he's back, I don't know where he heard this, but he shamelessly asked Mu Xiang and me to ask for a song for him. Haha, Mu Xiang probably won't give it to him. Yang-e sneered. Mo Fei nodded. Then she snorted and said disdainfully, I don't even want to talk to him, but what's even worse is that he even shamelessly asked Mu Xiang to sell him a nude song and fill in his name. He said that he didn't care about money, but how is this a matter of money? Does this person have any principles? It's disgusting. Yang-e was dumbfounded. There was such a thing. He's just a small-time celebrity. How can he say that money is not a problem? Yang-e was curious about one of the points. Murphy explained, Ju Jie is Sister Ling's relative, and it's said that his family owns a company and is very rich. Mo Shaowan was the one who told her all this gossip after she heard it. It turned out that he was Niu Meiling's relative. No wonder he dared to create a scandal with Murphy. Yang-e narrowed his eyes slightly. He felt that Ju Jie would not let this matter go. After all, the people of Tianmei had their own mailbox. Originally, Yang-e thought that if someone continued to harass him, he would change his email address. But now, Yang-e's interest was piqued. Since he made Murphy unhappy, how could Yang-e let that guy be safe and sound? Since he had his eyes on Mu Xiang, Yang-e also had an interesting idea. On the other side, Ju Jie angrily threw his phone on the sofa and cursed, F***ck, this 13, he doesn't put me in his eyes. Now, his face was gloomy and his face was ferocious. He no longer looked like a handsome young man in front of the camera. His manager, Du Luen, did not have much confidence. He could only comfort him. "Jie, don't make things difficult for Murphy. Let's think of another way." "What way?" Ju Jie unhappily said. "Don't tell me to find someone else to sing. I don't want anyone else's song. I want Mu Xiong's song. I want to be like Chen Yijie and be famous all over the country." Du Luen bitterly smiled in his heart. "You want to be like Chen Yijie? I'm afraid that even if you sang Long Time Not Seeing, you wouldn't be famous." Ju Jie was really ambitious. His voice was not distinguishable, and he did not go through any professional training. Later, when Niu Meiling arranged the training for him, he did not seriously learn. He just thought that he was a little handsome, rich, and had a good background. It would be easy to be a star. Obviously, it was all a daydream. More than 2 years had passed, and he had spent a lot of money, but there were few ripples. However, Du Luen was very tactful. He never showed his disdain in his heart. He smiled and said to Ju Jie as if nothing had happened, "Jie, although I didn't come back for the meeting, I heard that Jian Chua has Mu Xiong's contact information. And I guess this matter has something to do with your aunt. Instead of looking for Murphy, you might as well look for Jian Chua or Sister Ling." "My aunt knows Mu Xiong?" Ju Jie did not have a brain, so he listened to half of the words. His eyes lit up, and he patted the sofa and said, "Hey, Du Luen, why didn't you say so earlier? You made me angry with this woman." Well, he was anxious, and now he blamed himself. Du Luen was speechless, but he still advised, "Jie, don't worry about her. I'm going to ask my aunt for help." Ju Jie was not interested in anything, but he was the most enthusiastic about currying favor with Aunt Ling. He turned around and ran out excitedly. In order to make Murphy feel better, Yang Yi took her downstairs to play the piano. Music could be said to be Murphy's catmint. When she played the melody that she liked, she gradually smiled again. Yang Yi and she were playing with the cats. In order to take care of the 3 new members of the family, Yang Yi bought books to learn about cat rearing. Therefore, Yang Yi could be said to be a cat expert with rich theoretical experience. At this moment, he let Shi hold the kittens, and then he took the rake to comb the kittens' hair. Cats shed their hair every day, but they shed a lot in spring and autumn. It's almost autumn now, and I've seen them shed a lot of hair recently. Yang Yi explained, but when we comb their hair, we don't want them to shed their hair faster, but to help the kittens keep their hair clean, so that their hair is more shiny and beautiful. Shi was actually more interested in the rake in her father's hand. She remembered this word. This is Zhu Beiji's weapon. Yes, Zhu Beiji's rake is also a rake, but his is bigger. Yang Yi said with a smile. "I want to play with it too. Papa, can I play with it?" She opened her big eyes and looked at her father expectantly. Who could be indifferent to such cute big eyes? Yang Yi handed the rake to the little girl and taught her how to hold it. Don't use too much strength. You can't hold it too tightly, or you'll hurt the kittens. When she heard that she would hurt the kittens, she quickly learned from her father. She had to use 2 fingers to gently hold the handle, just like holding a pen. Yang Yi grabbed Little Gray. The little guy had been waiting by the side for a long time. Just now, it was eagerly watching Tao Dao being taken care of so comfortably. It was probably impatient. "Poop picker, have you forgotten about me?" He stroked Little Gray's head with his hand, following its soft blue ink hair and massaging its body. In fact, there was no need for this foreplay. Little Gray was lying there comfortably with its eyes closed, waiting for the poop picker to come. Under her father's guidance, she held the rake in her hand and started to comb Little Gray's hair in a small area, starting from its back. She didn't use much strength, but Little Gray was so comfortable that its tail curled up and gently twisted around. The back of its neck, chin, and chest, Little Gray received a full set of massage services from its little master. After everything was done, it jumped away energetically and couldn't wait to walk around in front of its companions, as if it was showing off. Hee, it's so fun. Little Gray is also very obedient. She was addicted to stroking the cat. She turned her head and said, "Where's Xiao Guai? Xiao Guai, come quickly. Big sister is going to comb your hair with Zhu Beiji's weapon." Immediately, a little blue shadow jumped down from the sofa next to her. Chapter 168. Unknowingly, little Han welcomed the fourth book on the shelves. Except for My Fairy Lady, the other two failed. He was very nervous about the results after the book was published. After all, it was a self-test to verify whether little Han had the ability to continue on this path. However, at the same time, little Han's nerves that had been tense for half a month seemed to be relaxed, as if he had figured something out. In fact, because he liked it, little Han still had the firm belief to continue on this path. There was no need to complain to everyone about the troubles in reality and the discrimination in writing online novels. Little Han wanted to talk to everyone about the original intention of writing The Artistic Life of a Stay-at-Home Dad. When he wrote My Fairy Lady, little Han had just graduated from college. Of course, he didn't have a daughter, but the variety show Where Are We Going, Dad? Was popular at that time, and little Han's desire to have a daughter was discovered. At the same time, he had the idea of creating a work that doted on his daughter. Unfortunately, when he wrote My Fairy Lady, it was his first time writing. He didn't know how to organize the plot, nor did he know how to arrange the scenes of the protagonist and the supporting characters. As a result, there were a lot of flaws. In addition, he was busy at work and didn't have much time to come up with ideas. In the end, the results were very bad, but at least he followed his own ideas and persevered until the end. Even so, 3 million words was not an easy achievement for a newbie. Almost a year later, he had failed 2 books with other themes and accumulated some experience. Before little Han was ready to start a new book, he still thought of the regrets left by My Fairy Lady, so this time, he planned to write a novel with the theme of a stay-at-home dad. It was different from the former, but it also had a cute daughter. When he wrote The Artistic Life of a Stay-at-Home Dad, little Han still didn't have a daughter, and he was still single. This was also good, as he could put more effort into coming up with the plot. However, although he didn't have a daughter, little Han's description of she and the details of raising a daughter were not completely based on his imagination. It included a lot of knowledge that he had accumulated from observing children and playing with them. Therefore, when little Han went out on the street and saw some young parents with children, he couldn't help but stop and smile slightly. He was a bit like a weird uncle. Of course, little Han usually liked children. During the holidays, he played happily with his cousins' children. When the company organized activities, his colleagues' children also liked to stick to little Han. It was just that he didn't know whether they treated little Han as a big brother or an uncle. As a young man, little Han still hoped that it was the former, haha. It was also because of these observations that Xiao Han was able to describe so many details of her life. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to write a lively and cute little she out of thin air. Let's talk about the characterization of Yang Yi and Murphy. These 2 protagonists were quite controversial because people often took things out of context or compared them with reality. Perhaps Xiao Han's ability was not enough to reflect their strengths. However, putting aside everyone's prejudices for the time being, Xiao Han talked about Murphy first. In terms of character, she was a woman who was obsessed with music and liked to sing on stage. She was a very simple and naive woman who liked to use a cold face to protect herself against complicated interpersonal relationships that she didn't like. Whether or not she existed in reality, Murphy existed in this novel. She was such a person. Of course, a simple person would be hit by reality. When she debuted, her mother used her own connections to reduce the difficulty of her starting out. Later, Murphy was discovered by Sister Ling because of her voice and singing skills. Sister Ling spared no effort to support her. At that time, Tianmei was just starting out and it was still a warm and happy time. Regardless of whether Sister Ling's thoughts were simple or not, in order to support Murphy, she treated her like a daughter. This was no problem. Therefore, after working hard for a few years, Murphy soared to the sky with the album Same Love as Missouri Road, and became a heavenly queen. That's right, with her personality, she would definitely suffer and encounter problems as a heavenly queen. But the problem was that not long after she became a heavenly queen and signed the contract, she retired because of her pregnancy, so the problems didn't appear for the time being. It could be said that Tian Mei suffered a lot because of her retirement. Perhaps it was because in the past 4 or 5 years, Sister Ling's thoughts had changed. She was a realistic person. A simple person like Murphy wouldn't be able to survive in the entertainment industry. Everyone wasn't wrong about this. But who asked her to meet Yang-e? This bug-like character. Kigo Higashino's Journey by Night had a paragraph on the back of the book, "My sky has no sun. It's always night, but it's not dark because something replaces the sun. Although it's not as bright as the sun, it's enough for me. With this light, I can treat night as day. I've never had a sun, so I'm not afraid of losing it." The story behind this paragraph was very gloomy. Of course, it didn't fit the situation of stay-at-home dad's artistic life. But Xiao Han wanted to use this opportunity to talk about Yang Yi's character. Yang Yi was first an assassin, then his identity after transmigrating was a wooden special forces soldier. As an assassin, he lived in the dark in his previous life. All his memories were cruel and without a trace of hope. But he was a person who yearned for the sun. Just like how he liked music, literature, and everything symmetrically arranged. This was a person who yearned for beauty in his heart. Coming to a new world, a new body, and an identity that could bathe in the sun, Yang Yi was very happy, but also very nervous. He was afraid that he would lose all of this. So he was very cautious in everything he did, including opening a side account to write songs for Murphy. In everyone's eyes, it was very routine and meaningless. But in fact, for Yang Yi, this was a stupid choice he made because he was afraid of losing it. There was no sun in his memory, but there was a person who replaced the sun and brought light to his world. Of course, this person was not Murphy, but Shi. This little cutie, this innocent little girl, made Yang Yi begin to face the beauty of this world. He began to carefully change his thoughts of ignoring the law and rules. This all needed a process. Yang Yi began to learn how to live and love life. He began to learn how to be a qualified father and enjoy the joy of doting on his daughter. But he was still afraid of losing it, so he was very cautious and still chose to keep a low profile. Speaking of which, Shi was Yang Yi's son, and Yang Yi was Murphy's son. This man once gave her hope when she was in the dark. Although she later gave birth to Yang Yi's child, she did not regret it. Now, Yang Yi was still her son. After he changed, his gentleness, thoughtfulness, and romance melted the iceberg that was Murphy, allowing her to enjoy the sweet and sour taste of love like a young girl. It allowed Murphy to find a second light of life outside of music. Of course, Yang Yi would also use songs from his previous life to support Murphy's career. A simple woman indeed could not go far in the big dive vat of the entertainment industry, but with Yang Yi, who was like a bug in the game, supporting her, would it be possible? In reality, Murphy and Yang Yi did not exist, but in the novel, why couldn't a pure voice exist? Similarly, Murphy was also very attractive to Yang Yi. Men who were used to fighting against each other and bloodshed actually preferred simple and innocent women. It could be said that he yearned for pure love, or it could be said that he had a strong desire to protect her. Anyway, two people with special personalities were like turtles and mung beans, and they liked each other. In any case, the overall story was still daily and warm, but it was also interspersed with some characters and plots that promoted the plot. After all, one would get tired of eating too much cake. Wouldn't it be better to have a bowl of hot and sour noodles or soy milk and fried dough sticks occasionally? Oh right, little Han did not forget to build a Disneyland for Shi. The plot had been constantly foreshadowing and preparing. As for when it would be built, take a guess. After talking about the plot and characters, little Han should return to the main topic. First of all, the book was able to be recommended all the way until it was finally pushed to the shelves. First of all, he had to thank his readers for their support. However, this paragraph was a little tedious, so it would be described later. Then, little Han would like to thank the editor-in-chief, Hu Shuo, and little Han's editor-in-chief, Wu Tong. Since signing the contract, they had been arranging for little Han to be recommended, including entering the arena of Sanjiang early on and many homepage recommendations. These big promotions that little Han would not have dared to imagine in the past were all enjoyed by Stay-at-Home Dad. Because of this, it gained more lovely readers. Of course, he also had to thank Cola, who had taken over his shift these few days. In the midst of crazily working overtime to review the book, he still took the time to answer questions for little Han, who was anxious because My Fairy Lady had been temporarily blocked. He was really a good person. He hoped that the editorial department could give Cola a few more bottles of Nutri-Express. Back to what he said earlier about thanking his readers, whether it was the readers who drove all day in the group chat, the readers who were diligently writing reviews in the book review section, or the readers who were silently tipping and voting. It was because of your clicks and recommendations that the grades of Stay-at-Home Dad rose steadily and won the editor's favor. Although he had to thank all the readers who supported little Han, how should he put it? Now, little Han had to mention a few familiar names. He might forget some of them, so he apologized in advance. Li Jishu, thank you. When Stay-at-Home Dad was still in its infancy, you had already included little Han's book in your reading list and had been supporting it all along. Tian Rushue, in fact, you rarely posted reviews, but you tipped almost every day. Little Han remembered your name, and then many little drops made an ocean. He also had fan points from the leader. Thank you for your persistence. Dream can flower, Wu Ma, bold and unrestrained life, and so on. In fact, there were many IDs that were very familiar. Thank you for always being active in the book review section, giving little Han valuable advice and sometimes speaking up for justice. Thank you, T Mountain Hermit, for always supporting little Han like a big brother. He even scolded the trolls who did not even read the follow-up posts for little Han. Thank you, Sky Blueberry Jam, for being the first leader in little Han's life. I still remember when I saw your tip, little Han rubbed his eyes. He could not believe that there were so many zeros behind it. Thank you, Old K Luo, for being the second leader of little Han. I also want to thank Xiao Yao. Both of you are readers in the group. Thank you for your constant support. Yes, I also want to thank Dali Creates Miracles for your support. You are already in your 3rd year of high school. Hurry up and study hard. Come on. There are many more IDs to thank. There is really no way to write down everyone's IDs, but little Han has always remembered them in his heart. With your support, he will continue to work hard. More than 300,000 words. After 2 months, Stay-at-Home Dad was still going to be published. This book had also reached the most critical moment. Here, little Han sincerely called on readers who liked Stay-at-Home Dad to support the original subscription if they had the ability. Beliefs and ideals cannot break free from reality. Every original subscription will be an affirmation of little Han's hard work in writing. It will be the foundation for little Han to create a better story. It will be published tomorrow. If there are no accidents, it will start to update after 12 o'clock. It seems that it will only enter V at this time. It is estimated that there will be an explosion of 10 chapters per day on the 1st and 2nd days. On the 3rd day, little Han will try to update 10 chapters per day, but it depends on whether he can write by then. After that, he will normally update at least 3 chapters per day. He will update for the reward of 10,000 or N rewards. However, the amount of updates depends on the situation. Normally, he will update once per day. If little Han has spare time, he will update once more. However, this situation is very rare. After all, little Han's writing speed is a bit slow. The updates that he owes will be made up one by one. Little Han has noted them down. As for the update time, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd updates will be the same as ours now. 10 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and 7 o'clock in the evening. If he updates, it will be scheduled at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. This kind of explosion and update can be considered as attentiveness, right? Even if it is not for the sake of little Han's hard work, but for the sake of she's pitiful big eyes, give Stay-at-Home Dad's literary life some support for subscriptions and monthly votes. Love you guys forever. Chapter 169. Sometimes, the 4-year-old girl didn't know how to control her strength. Even though she was trying her best to control herself, she would still occasionally hurt the kitten. Xiao Guai would scream from time to time, and its body would tremble. But overall, this massacred chicken was still very comfortable. Xiao Guai squinted its eyes, enjoying the pain and happiness. Little Gray couldn't help but walk around its little master with its tail up. Xiao Guai was fine. Its personality was just like Murphy's in the past. It was so cold that it pretended not to care at all. Its head was turned to the side, but it was unwilling to walk away. Its tail was raised up and gently swaying, revealing its inner desire. Little Gray was the eldest of the 3 cat siblings, but it also liked to act spoiled the most. It looked to the side for a while, then put its fluffy little paw on its little master's arm as if to say, "Let go of that cat, come to me." After Yang Yi saw that his daughter was already skillfully stroking the cat, he stood up, washed his hands at the bar, and poured a glass of water. Murphy had also stopped at some point. She sat on the piano stool and smiled slightly as she watched her daughter's actions. In the past few days, Mo Fei's relatives had come. Yesterday, she had a stomachache because she laughed too much. Yang Yi poured a glass of warm water and brought it to her. "Thank you." Murphy took the water. The clean glass, crystal clear water, and the warm feeling in her hands made her raise her head to look at Yang Yi. Her eyes were soft. Yang Yi smiled faintly, leaned on the side, and looked at their daughter with Murphy. "Actually, I'm still a little reluctant to send her to kindergarten." Yang Yi sighed softly and said, "I'm used to having such a noisy little fella at home. I'm afraid it'll be quiet all of a sudden tomorrow." Murphy looked at him reproachfully and said, "You're still talking about it. She is used to being wild at your place. She doesn't even want to go back to my place. My house is deserted. Then move in with me. I'll send you to the company." Yang Yi suddenly turned his head and said with a burning gaze, "Just like she, I'll pick you up at night." Murphy didn't know if it was Yang Yi's words or Yang Yi's longing eyes that made her flustered. She pursed her lips and said after a while, "How can that be? You're working too hard." "Not at all." Yang Yi felt that he had a chance. He tried his best to promote himself. "Think about it, if you live here, the place will be spacious, the surrounding environment will be comfortable, the mountain will be by the water, and the air will be fresh." It always made people feel that the next sentence should be, "Do you want to buy or not? Do you buy it or not? If you buy it now, this house will only cost you 998 yuan. You won't regret it if you don't buy it." Of course, Yang Yi wasn't that stupid. He continued, "And I can cook delicious food for the 2 of you every day. If you want to eat Chinese food, I can cook Sichuan, Shandong, Guangdong, Su, Min, Zhejiang, Hunan, and Anhui. If you want to eat Western food, I can cook French, Italian, and even Russian. Or if you want to eat sushi, I can make it." He recited the long list of dishes without his tongue spinning. She didn't know if he had learned Shu Lai Bao, but Murphy couldn't help but want to laugh when she heard it. "I can't do it now. I'm very busy, and you're also very busy. How can I need you to pick me up every day?" Murphy still shook her head, but explained in a soft voice, "And sometimes the recording state can't be interrupted. It might even be very late." At this moment, Yang Yi's mind popped up with an idea. "Hurry up and earn money so that Mo Shaowan can open a studio near home. Besides, now that you're opening a shop, won't there be more customers?" Murphy smiled and pointed outside. She said, "Although you locked the door today, I saw several groups of people coming over to look. When school officially starts, there might be more customers. When that time comes, who will have time to drive an hour to pick me up?" "Oh." Yang Yi nodded silently. Murphy was telling the truth. Recently, there had been more customers. If Yang Yi opened a shop, sometimes he wouldn't have time to take care of Shi. However, this wasn't the life he wanted. How should he adjust? August 31st. Today was the big day that Shi entered the garden, but it was also an important milestone in the internet era. Early in the morning, led by Sahara Online Mall, formerly Sahara Online Bookstore, Chihuahua Literature website, and the three major domestic banks jointly held a media conference. We announced that the internet has entered the era of online payment, the CEO of the commercial bank said with a red face. He and the leaders of the other two banks, the owner of Sahara Online Mall, Fu Jun, and the owner of Chihuahua Literature website, pushed the trigger that symbolized the beginning of the voyage. The media, who had already received the news, excitedly pressed the flash button and desperately raised their hands to ask questions. After Fu Jun sent the leaders away, he stayed and answered the questions of the reporters one by one. What is online payment? It is that netizens can skip the tedious process of transferring money in front of banks or ATMs. They can directly log into the corresponding bank's online platform and complete the payment operation. Obviously, it will greatly improve the efficiency of online payment, allowing more people to easily enjoy the services on the internet. Of course, the most important thing is to save money. Why? Before the appearance of online payment, there were two processes for people to recharge and pay online. One was to go to the bank to make every transfer payment, and the other was through a third-party internet payment company. For example, Xiaoming liked to read novels on the Taijun website and also liked to read novels on the Chiyu Literature website. He also liked to watch movies on one website and listen to songs on another website. Obviously, he couldn't go to the bank to pay for every novel he read and every song he listened to. It was also impossible for him to top up a large sum of money in advance on every website. Moreover, there were no pirated websites in this world, so there was no free lunch. So, Xiaoming didn't want the trouble, nor did he want too much money to be locked up in different websites. He could only go to the bank to remit money to a third-party internet payment company, and the money would be stored in the internet payment company's account in the form of numbers. Then, if he wanted to spend money on a website, he only needed to transfer the corresponding amount of money online through the third-party internet payment company and recharge it into the website's account to complete the spending. Of course, there was no interest for this money in the internet payment company, and the fees for each transfer were not cheap. However, in the past, netizens could only bear with it in order to enjoy these services. Now, with the appearance of online payment, there was no doubt that it greatly impacted the third-party internet payment market, but it also brought convenience to the netizens. The internet enters a new era. This title was definitely not sensationalism. Some of the reporters were already excited, as if they had seen the great prosperity of the internet. Chapter 170. Although Yang Yi was inextricably linked to the internet, it didn't affect him for the time being. Today's big event for the Yang family was to send Shi to kindergarten. Early in the morning, the little girl was in a good mood. She hadn't realized how cruel it was to go to kindergarten, and she felt that it was very fresh. Moreover, her parents had dressed her up beautifully, making her look like a little princess. "Carry your backpack. Come, let Mom take a look. Our family's she has become a big girl. So pretty." Murphy's exaggerated tone made Shi, who wasn't used to carrying a backpack, overjoyed. As she smiled, she pinched her skirt in embarrassment. Yang Yi sat on the sofa's armrest and smiled helplessly. "All right, it's almost time. If we don't leave now, we'll be late." He wasn't afraid of being late, but he was afraid of the two girls, one big and one small, spending half a day to dress up. It was so tiring waiting. Murphy woke up early in the morning and spent half a day dressing up. Yang Yi was speechless. He said, "You're not sending Shi to the kindergarten. You're staying in the car the whole time. Why do you have to dress up?" The result of this complaint was obvious. Then, Murphy combed and styled Shi's hair. She also picked out clothes, changed clothes, and shoes. Yang Yi waited for more than an hour. Murphy said excitedly to Yang Yi, "Wait a minute." She turned and ran to Yang Yi's study. Then, she ran back in her slippers with Yang Yi's SLR camera in her hand. She stuffed it into Yang Yi's hands and smiled. "How can we not take photos on such an important day?" Thus, Yang Yi could only take beautiful photos of them. Murphy asked him to set a timer so that the whole family could take a group photo together. Another 20 minutes passed, and they were almost late. Murphy reluctantly let Yang Yi push her into the car. On the way, Murphy was still examining the photos taken by Yang Yi. After a few months of practice, Yang Yi's portrait photography skills had improved a lot. Murphy was very satisfied, but there were still some parts that she felt were not taken well. Shi, why do you always use the peace sign when taking photos? Ah. The little girl looked at her mother in a daze. She didn't quite understand. Murphy imitated Shi in the photo and made a V sign. She smiled and said, "Look, you always take photos like this. If you do this in every photo, it won't look good. Papa taught me." Shi sat on the child's seat and grabbed her mother's arm. She also wanted to see the photos. "That's why your papa has facial paralysis in the photos," Murphy said mercilessly. Yang Yi smiled bitterly in the front, but he didn't care. "You have to learn how to take photos from Mom. Mom will teach you that you can make expressions like this." Murphy taught Shi how to act cute. One moment, she would puff out her mouth and stare, the next moment, she would hold her cheek with her hand, and the next moment, she would make a surprised round mouth. "There's such a thing." Murphy smiled. She made a fist with her right hand and then puffed out her mouth. He. She didn't care about going to school. She was amused by her mother and couldn't stop laughing. "Papa, look. Mom is like a cat." Yang Yi glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Murphy acting cute. The corners of his mouth curled up and he laughed silently. After a while, the car arrived at the kindergarten. There were many cars outside the kindergarten. After all, this was a villa area, and there were many rich people. Yang Yi saw that the car wouldn't be able to squeeze in for a while, so he pulled over and stopped tyrannical. "I'll send Shi over. You wait for me in the car." Yang Yi reached for the bag on the passenger seat. There was Shi's small school bag, and there was also a small bag that contained some information about entering the kindergarten. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Murphy, are you really not going with me?" Murphy hesitated for a moment, but still shook her head and said, "Forget it. If she's recognized, she won't be able to have peace in the kindergarten." However, Murphy still felt a little sad. She couldn't participate in such an important moment for Shi. When Murphy unfastened the little girl's seat belt, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. "Shi, you have to be good. You have to listen to your teacher, okay?" Murphy's voice was slightly choked. She pressed her daughter's forehead and said gently. She nodded in a daze. However, she still didn't realize that there was anything wrong with going to kindergarten. The little girl just felt that she might get to know a lot of other children. She was a little nervous, but she also felt that going to kindergarten was very refreshing. She was looking forward to it. Murphy didn't want her emotions to affect Shi, so she forced a smile and rubbed her daughter's head. She helped her open the car door near the sidewalk. "Say goodbye to Mom," Yang Yi said as he got out of the car and held Shi's hand. Shi waved at Murphy obediently and said, "Goodbye, Mom." "Goodbye, Mom will wait for you at home." Murphy held back her tears and waved at Shi. She felt that her daughter going to kindergarten was more worrying than going to her father's house. After all, the latter was taken care of by Yang Yi. Yang Yi wasn't very reliable in other things, but she had never worried about him taking care of her daughter. Murphy half opened the car door and watched as Yang Yi carried Shi's small school bag and held Shi's hand as they walked to the kindergarten. Her heart tightened. Even though the car door was closed, Murphy still looked out through the car window. Suddenly, Yang Yi stopped. Murphy became nervous. "What's wrong? Did you forget something?" "No." Yang Yi squatted down and helped Shi carry her small school bag. Just then, Murphy turned sideways and could see the smile on Shi's face. It turned out that the little girl was shameless again. Seeing Yang Yi holding Shi's hand as they walked into the kindergarten, Murphy reluctantly withdrew her gaze. Originally, Murphy had planned to send Shi to kindergarten today and then go back to the company to start preparing for her new album. However, now it seemed that Murphy felt that if she didn't see Shi come back tonight, she wouldn't have anything else to do. Therefore, Murphy hesitated for a moment, took out her cell phone, and called Mo Shawan. Shawan, I'm not going back today. Well, she went to kindergarten, but I feel very nervous. I'll stay with Yang Yi today and ask Yang Yi to send me back tomorrow. Mo Shawan had actually arranged some things for Murphy, such as meeting the new producer arranged by the company. However, she still threw away the notebook in her hand, chuckled, and said rather meaningfully, "Sis, I understand. Cece isn't at home anymore. It's okay, there's nothing to do at the company. You can play for 2 more days." Murphy felt that her cousin's voice was strange, but she didn't have the mood to think about it. She replied with an "okay," and hung up the phone. Chapter 171. On the other hand, Yang Yi held She's little hand and led her into the kindergarten. "Welcome, little sister." There were 2 rows of female teachers standing at the door. They were all smiling and clapping their hands. They were full of enthusiasm as soon as they came up. Perhaps affected by the lively atmosphere, She also took her father's hand. She walked a little cheerfully and looked around curiously. After a while, they walked past the teacher's welcome. The little girl couldn't wait to pull her father's hand and ask him to squat down and whisper to her, "Papa, I think it's fun here." The little girl's lips were red and her teeth were white. She looked so cute when she blinked her big eyes and smiled. Yang Yi scratched his head. Is it fun?" Before he came, he was worried that she would cry. He thought of countless tricks in his heart and even looked up some information. He could almost write a 1,000-word paper on how to solve the problem of children crying on the first day of kindergarten. However, now it seemed that all his preparations were in vain. Not only did she not cry, but she also looked eager to try. "It's fun." She nodded vigorously. However, she didn't cry, but it didn't mean that the other children wouldn't cry. Yang Yi had just finished the registration procedures for Cece when a little boy beside him burst into tears. His mother hurriedly picked up the little boy and coaxed him with red eyes, but she couldn't calm him down no matter how hard she tried. His father was helpless and didn't know what to do. Cece, on the other hand, was shocked. She held her father's hand tightly and stared at the crying little boy. When Yang Yi took her away, she was still lying on her father's shoulder and asked curiously, "Papa, what's wrong with that little brother?" They didn't know who was older and who was younger. However, she had good genes and was tall. She looked taller than children of the same age, especially the little boy. Yang Yi was afraid that his daughter's mood would be affected. He carried she out and whispered, "I don't know. Maybe it's because he's not as obedient as she. Our she never cries, right?" Yes, she is so obedient." The little girl smiled happily. However, it was still time to part. Yang Yi took she to the middle class that she was going to. At the door, several teachers were already waiting. The 2 young female teachers on the left and right were Teacher Shen and Teacher Kai respectively. The female teacher in the middle, who was in her 30s or almost in her 40s, was their homeroom teacher, Teacher Mu. Mr. Mu smiled and walked over. He gently placed his hand on She's shoulder and said, She, do you still remember Mr. Mu?" She subconsciously leaned toward her father and looked at the other party timidly. After all, she was still a little unfamiliar. "We met last time when Dad brought you here. Say hello to Mr. Mu." Yang Yi pushed the little girl's back and encouraged her. "Hello, Mr. Mu." At home, Yang Yi and Murphy had taught she these etiquette, but she was still a little shy. She said in a soft voice and hurried back to her father's side. "And Teacher Shan and Teacher Kai." Yang Yi pushed his daughter again. After the first time, she was not so shy anymore. She greeted the 2 teachers obediently. Both Teacher Shan and Teacher Kai responded with a smile. Teacher Kai even cutely used her hand to make a duck's mouth and said, "Hello, little friend Yang Shi." The amiable appearance of the teachers made she gradually let down her guard. At least, she didn't hide by her father's side like she did at the beginning. Then Mr. Mu, I'll leave Shi to you. Help me take good care of her. Yang Yi couldn't help but say a few words. She has to drink a bottle of water almost every 2 hours. Then, she has to drink milk in the morning and in the afternoon. We have prepared lunch for her in her school bag. The blue cat's lunchbox is Shi's, and the other pink cartoon character's lunchbox has the same dish. Shi said that she wanted to share it with the other children. After a while of explanation, Yang Yi felt a little sour in his nose. When did he become so sentimental? In the past, when Shi went back to her mother's house, Yang Yi didn't have any emotional fluctuations at all. Mr. Mu looked at Yang Yi with a smile and said, "Father Yang, please don't worry. We will take good care of your daughter. Of course, don't we have your mobile phone number? If there's anything, we will definitely communicate with your parents in time." "That's good." Yang Yi nodded. It was time to say goodbye to Shi. Yang Yi squatted down and tidied up his daughter's hat. The little girl wearing a bell-shaped hat had never been so beautiful. "Daddy is leaving. Shi, remember to be good and pinky swear with Daddy, okay?" Yang Yi said softly. "Where is Daddy going?" She was a little confused. She realized that something was wrong. "Daddy sent you to kindergarten, and then I'm going home." Yang Yi immediately added, "But don't worry, Daddy will come to pick up Shi after school in the afternoon." Shi's little face finally stopped smiling. She nervously grabbed her father's hand and asked uneasily, "Ah? Why is Daddy going home?" "Because Daddy can't accompany you to kindergarten." Yang Yi seemed to feel that his preparation could come in handy. But, why can't you?" The little girl was so anxious that her eyes turned red. At this moment, she felt as if her father took her to the amusement park to play, but told her that he couldn't play with her. Yang Yi resisted the urge to hold the little girl in his arms and coax her. Because the strategy told him that the more he coaxed her, the more she would cry. Therefore, Yang Yi just gently patted Shi's shoulder and said softly, "Because in kindergarten, Shi has to play with the teacher and other friends. Daddy will come to pick up Shi in the afternoon to go home for dinner. Remember? You pinky swear with Daddy, and you said that you won't cry. Whoever cries is a dog." Yang Yi stretched out his right pinky and shook it. "Well, I won't cry." The little girl's tears were rolling down, but she still held it back. She sniffed and said, But I still don't want Daddy to leave. Daddy will wait for you to come back in the evening and tell Daddy about today's fun, so she must have fun with the children, okay?" Yang Yi still couldn't help but wipe the corners of his daughter's eyes. As a result, the golden beans rolled down one by one. However, she was still very obedient. Although she was reluctant to leave, and although she was crying, she still nodded vigorously. The strategy also told Yang Yi that he couldn't stay for too long. The more worried and reluctant he was, the more he had to leave. Because the more he let the children see their parents, the more they would cry. One had to know that children were also very smart. As long as their parents were soft-hearted once, they would take advantage of their parents' soft-heartedness and continue to make trouble. Shi, goodbye. Daddy will come to pick you up in the afternoon." Yang Yi handed Shi to Teacher Mu. Then, as his daughter waved at him with tears in her eyes, he steeled his heart and turned to leave. When he turned around, he was very forceful. He lowered his head and walked out, afraid that he couldn't help but look back and be reluctant to leave. Chapter 172. Murphy had already returned to the passenger seat. Seeing that Yang Yi had returned, she couldn't wait to ask when he got into the car, "How was it? Did she cry? How's her mood? Did she make a fuss?" Yang Yi had already adjusted himself. After all, a man's heart was big. He smiled and said, "Even if you didn't ask, I wanted to tell you about our daughter. She's really easy to raise. From the beginning, she was always smiling. She didn't even cry when other children cried." "She didn't cry?" Murphy's expression was a little disappointed. "She cried. Later, when she found out that I didn't accompany her to kindergarten, she still cried. But she was still very obedient and kept holding back her tears. She only cried when I left. Yang-yi thought of his daughter's strong little face and felt very gratified in his heart. However, Murphy's nose twitched when she heard that. She pursed her lips and reached out to hit Yang-yi. She said angrily, "You're still laughing? Our daughter is crying, and you're still laughing. How can you laugh?" Yang-yi grabbed her hand and complained, "I'm not laughing. I just think that she is much better than other children. You didn't see how tragic the other children were crying." The sound was so loud that it almost lifted the ceiling. Then, her mother was like that too. She probably felt bad when she heard the crying, and then tears flowed down her face. Yang-yi used this as a topic to talk about with Murphy after a meal, but he didn't notice that Murphy's expression had turned from cloudy to stormy. "Oh, I'm also Mom. I feel bad too." Murphy had been holding it in for a long time. When she got out of the car, she suppressed this worry and reluctance in the bottom of her heart. Now that Yang-yi said that, it all came tumbling out. Murphy couldn't help but burst into tears at first. Then, she choked with sobs and complained, choking with sobs. "What's wrong?" Yang-yi was ready to start the car. Now he didn't even have time to insert the key. He turned around and wanted to comfort Murphy. However, Murphy was crying even harder than the last time she cried when Yang-yi angered her. Yang-yi felt a little helpless. He had done a lot of homework before, but none of it was to comfort the adults. "It's all your fault for saying those things and making me cry." Murphy's face was filled with tears as she pouted. She turned around and punched Yang-yi's chest. Yang-yi didn't know what was going on, but he pulled her into his arms. "Oh." Murphy's cries came to a halt. Obviously, she didn't think that Yang-yi would be so bold. Her small fist was placed in front of Yang-yi's sturdy chest, and she forgot to hammer it down. "Well, cry. You'll feel better after you cry." Yang-yi's soft voice sounded in her ears. It has to be said that Murphy's worry about she still prevailed. She cried in Yang-yi's arms again and choked with sobs. "Yang-yi, I'm worried about she. It's okay. Yang-yi patted Murphy's thin back and softly coaxed, "There will always be such a process. Later, when she gets used to it, she won't cry anymore." "But I can't bear to let her leave home." Murphy sobbed in Yang-yi's arms. "Thinking about it makes me sad." Yang-yi was puzzled and asked, "When a child grows up, it's important for her to leave her parents' wings. Besides, didn't you want she to go to kindergarten in the beginning?" Ouch. Yang-yi felt that the soft flesh on his waist was pinched. This time, Murphy didn't pick a place with muscles. She found a piece of flesh that wasn't so hard and pinched. Being attacked, Yang-yi subconsciously tightened his muscles, which drove Murphy's little hand away. Even so, he still knew that he said the wrong thing. He quickly corrected himself and said, "Don't worry, I'm here, right? If you're really worried, I won't go anywhere today. I'll climb to the roof and secretly guard. I won't let anyone touch she." Murphy shook her head. Yang-yi smelled her slightly curly hair, which exuded a faint fragrance, a bit like lily. "Then tonight, I'll pick up she and ask her about her situation. I'll call you to tell you. Or I'll let she call you. Anyway, you don't have to worry about anything. You just need to know that I'm here for everything," Yang-yi said. Under Yang-yi's comfort, Murphy gradually stopped crying. She just gently sobbed in Yang-yi's arms. After a while, she said, "I won't go back today. I told Xiaowan that I'll wait for she." Yang-yi was stunned and said with some joy, "That's great. When we go back, I'll make you a special meal for lunch. Then, we'll pick up she together in the afternoon. If she sees you, she'll be very happy." Murphy was in Yang-yi's arms. Although the storage box was between them and the position was a bit awkward, Murphy, who was weak from crying, felt that this support was very warm. After Yang-yi held Murphy in his arms, his heart was beating very fast. It wasn't that Murphy's soft body gave him a lot of stimulation. Although his body had been empty for a long time, a small flame could start a prairie fire. Yang Yi wasn't thinking about that at the moment. That heartbeat was like two magnets of different poles meeting. That kind of predestined attraction was causing trouble. If it was possible, Yang Yi hoped that he could hug her to the end of the world. Although it didn't suit the situation, Yang Yi felt that his thoughts were like the lyrics of the super hot anime song, "Until the end of the world, I don't want to be separated from you." However, obviously, there was no need to wait until the end of the world. After all, Murphy wasn't a woman who relied on others. After she regained her senses, she felt that the quiet atmosphere in the car seemed to be wine red, and it was somewhat intoxicating and ambiguous. Murphy raised her head and gently bit her rosy lower lip. Looking at Yang Yi's scorching eyes, she said with slight anger, "How long are you going to hug me for?" Yang Yi found it difficult to understand Murphy's emotions, but he didn't want to be rude to a beauty. He smiled and let go of his hands, although he was still a little reluctant. The two of them sat back in their normal positions. Mo Fei reached out her hand to brush her hair that was wet with tears and tucked it behind her ears as if nothing had happened. "Come, wipe it." Yang Yi considerately handed over the pull-out paper box in the car. Murphy said softly. She felt that her performance just now was a little embarrassing. Actually, it was normal. Which mother wouldn't feel heartache and cry when sending their child to school, whether it was a kindergarten that was close by or a university that was far away? If they did, they would probably hide their tears in the bottom of their hearts. "Let's go back." Yang Yi started Tyrant, loosened the clutch, stepped on the accelerator, and drove off. After all, men weren't as meticulous as women. Yang Yi couldn't wait to bring Murphy home. How could he still remember his daughter? Maybe, in any case, he would bring her back at night. Maybe that was what he was thinking. Only Murphy was still looking out of the car window with some worry. She was still thinking, "I don't know how she is now. Is she scared? Is she still crying? What was she doing now?" Chapter 173. Although she had promised her father not to cry, she still felt wronged in her heart, and her tears flowed uncontrollably. However, she was considered to be the most well-behaved among the dozen or so new children in the class. A few of them were crying so hard that they were out of breath, and Teacher Mu and the others couldn't coax them. "Sob. Sob. Don't cry, okay? You're making me want to cry too." A slightly chubby little girl next to them burst into tears. That loud and clear voice immediately shocked Cece. She looked at her with a tear-stained face with her mouth wide open, and she even forgot to cry. Teacher Shan hurriedly ran over and comforted the loud little girl. Lon Xian, aren't you a senior student? It's not like you've never been to kindergarten before. Why are you crying?" There were more than 30 children in the class, and nearly 20 of them were promoted from the lower classes, including Lon Xian. There were only a dozen children like Shi who had just signed up this year, but because of their age, they could only be transferred to the middle class. Lon Xian rubbed her eyes with her chubby little hands. She sobbed and complained, because they're crying, I can't help it. I miss Daddy too." When she heard her last sentence, her longing for her father suddenly surged. She couldn't help but cry out, sob. "I miss Papa too, Papa." Shi and Lon Xian's voices were quite loud. The two of them together immediately suppressed the crying children in the class, and this kind of sadness was contagious. Suddenly, the children in the class cried one after another. Just as Yang Yi said, the crying almost overturned the kindergarten. Fortunately, there were still some children who were used to going to kindergarten. They didn't cry, and they obediently sat on the small bench, not causing trouble for the teachers who were as busy as ants on a hot pan. Except for a little girl who was relatively large. She couldn't sit still, so she jumped down from the chair and walked around the class. This girl was as tall as Shi. She was the tallest among her peers. However, compared to Shi, who was as thin as her mother, she was much stronger. Her face was also round, and the other children were a little scared when they saw her. "Sigh, all of you are useless. She walked in a circle, and in the middle of the circle, she said triumphantly, "They're all a bunch of sniveling slugs. Chen Shuyun, you're causing trouble again." Teacher Kai, who was younger, hurriedly ran over and said reproachfully, "Don't talk to the children like that. That's clearly the case. When I came here, I didn't cry." Chen Shuyun shouted, unconvinced. "Shuyun, don't throw a tantrum." Teacher Mu's gentle voice drifted over, causing Chen Shuyun to wilt. However, Teacher Mu still had a way to deal with her. He pulled her to the side and whispered to her gently. Finally, Teacher Mu pulled her over again. "Shuyun, do you have something to say to everyone?" "All right, Teacher Kai, I'm sorry. Children, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that you were." Although Chen Shuyun pouted, under Teacher Mu's gaze, she still muttered. With such an episode attracting everyone's attention, the crying of the children gradually stopped. The teachers wiped the tears of the little guys and were about to start today's lesson. "Children, we have 13 new children today, but we don't know each other. So, shall we introduce ourselves first?" Teacher Mu asked the children to sit in a circle hand in hand. Teacher Shan and Teacher Kai also sat in the middle of the children. Then, she walked around the circle and said, for example, "Teacher Mu, what's your name?" I know. It was Chen Shuyun again. This big girl raised her hand and shouted, "It's Mu Yuyen." "That's right. First of all, you have to say your name. Then, you have to tell us what you're good at," Teacher Mu said with a smile. "For example, Teacher Mu, I can sing." "Hee, Teacher Mu's singing is so good," Chen Shuyun said to the children next to her proudly. However, the children next to her sat upright with their hands behind their backs. Obviously, their parents were strict with them and had no intention of paying attention to her. She sat opposite Chen Shuyun. On her left was a silly little boy, and on her right was a very cute little girl who was secretly wiping her tears. She looked a little pitiful. She looked at Teacher Mu with full attention. Everything was so new to her. Gradually, she let go of her thoughts of her parents. I. It was the little boy next to she's turn to introduce himself. He stood up like everyone else, but he forgot what to say. "Introduce yourself first." Teacher Mu gave him an encouraging look. "My name is Nan Xiaoyu," the little boy said timidly. His voice was so soft. "Okay, little Xiaoyu, what are you good at?" Teacher Mu continued to remind him gently. Of course, there was no need for such young children to say their names clearly. They probably didn't even know how to write their own names. Teacher Mu was able to pronounce accurately because she had already memorized all the children's names and appearances. I can recite poems." When he said this, Nan Xiaoyu's voice was obviously louder. It seemed that he had some confidence in this skill of his. "Recite poems? That's great. Our little Xiaoyu must have a good memory." Teacher Mu smiled and clapped. "Let us once again welcome Nan Xiaoyu to our family of middle class." The applause was very enthusiastic. These children were very energetic when doing something together. The little boy sat down amidst the applause, his chest straight. Finally, it was she's turn to introduce herself. The little girl stood up and pinched the hem of her skirt nervously. Teacher Mu was still worried that she didn't know what to say and wanted to remind her, but she still opened her mouth. "My name is Shi." No. Shi thought of something, waved her hand with a red face and said, "My name is Yang Shi, because my papa is also Yang. His name is Yang Yi, and then he will call me Shi." The little girl was a little confused when organizing her words. After all, she was still young, but it was rare for her to speak clearly, unlike the other children who stuttered. "Then, I can draw. Papa taught me to draw very beautiful pictures, and I can sing." After she finished speaking, she stood there at a loss. She didn't know how to end it. Fortunately, Teacher Mu helped her out. "Very good, our little young she introduced herself very well. Let's applaud and welcome her to join us." After a burst of applause, she sat down happily. The little girl beamed with joy and was in a particularly good mood. She began to have a positive evaluation of kindergarten life. At this moment, it was the little girl's turn to introduce herself. With tears still hanging from her eyelashes, she was even more bashful than Nan Xiaoyu just now. Under Teacher Mu's encouragement several times, she finally said her name in a soft voice. "My name is Yang Luoqi, my father calls me Chi-Chi." Chapter 174. The morning class was shortened due to reporting matters and comforting the crying children. Teacher Mu let the children do a round of self-introduction. In the middle of the class, they took a break to let the children drink water and milk. Then, they played a small game. It was almost lunchtime. The lunch brought by the children had to be heated up, so Teacher Mu and Teacher Shan went out to the kitchen to help, leaving Teacher Kai to look after the children. Of course, at this time, everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. She was a little uneasy. She sat on her stool and enviously looked at the children playing around. She actually wanted to play like them. This little girl had never been a quiet and introverted girl. At home, she played the craziest. But now, she had never encountered a situation like this. She didn't know how to take the initiative to talk to her friends. She looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. She stood up and sat down again. It made people anxious. On the other hand, the little girl named Yang Luoqi next to her was more calm. She was probably really introverted and didn't fit in with the group. She sat on her stool in a daze and didn't have any intention of talking. At this time, Chen Shiyun, who was surrounded by a few children, swaggered over. She wasn't as quiet as her name suggested. Instead, she was tall and strong. Like a dark cloud, she blocked Shi's line of sight. "I'm Chen Shiyun. Are you Shi?" Chen Shiyun asked loudly. Shi. This pronunciation made Yang Luoqi, who was next to her, subconsciously raise her head and look at Chen Shiyun in confusion. Mom said it was impolite to sit and talk to others. Shi quickly stood up. The little girl nodded happily, and then said a little nervously, "Yes, I'm Shi. Are you here to be friends with me?" Previously, Shi and Chen Shiyun were about the same height. But when the two stood side by side, she saw that there was still a little gap. Shi was a little taller, not by much, about the size of an adult's finger. However, if they didn't stand together, Chen Shiyun's broad shoulders and thick waist made her look as tall as Shi. When Chen Shiyun saw that Shi was taller than her, she felt a little depressed. However, she was still a child after all. She only cared about talking to Shi. "Well, I want to be friends with you, but you have to listen to me in the future." "Why?" She asked in confusion. "My papa said that I should listen to the teacher. You can choose not to listen to your teacher, but you must listen to me." Chen Shiyun was not happy. She put her hands on her hips and said, "They all listen to me. Why don't you listen to me?" "No, my papa said that I have to listen to the teacher." She pouted. She didn't like other people's fierce look. "Then I don't want to be your friend anymore." Chen Shiyun snorted and proudly said. Cici was stunned. She didn't expect to be threatened like this, but it was as if something she loved had been snatched away. The little girl suddenly felt very wronged. She pursed her lips, and tears were about to fall from her eyes. "Chen Shiyun, don't bully others." At this time, a messenger of justice came out. It was Lan Xin, the little girl with a particularly loud voice. She was a little chubby. She ran over angrily, took Shishi's hand and said, "If you make her cry, I will tell Teacher Mu." Teacher Mu was Chen Shiyun's nemesis. The tall and strong little girl suddenly withered. She muttered, "Who said that I bullied her? I was just playing with her. Forget it, let's go somewhere else to play." Chen Shiyun's appeal was quite strong. In an instant, 3 or 4 children who surrounded her ran away with their heads held high. Lan Xin turned her head and said to Shi, "Don't be afraid. Chen Shiyun likes to bully others." If we tell Teacher Moo, she won't dare to bully us. She still pursed her lips and cried, but they don't want to be my friend anymore. Lon Xian scratched her head anxiously. Oh, don't cry. If you cry, I also want to cry. She was right. Her eyes were a little red, but this time, Lon Xian had an idea and said, I can be your friend. She stopped crying at once. Her delicate little face was like a pear blossom in the rain, but there was a surprised expression on her face. She grabbed Lon Xian's hand and asked, Really? Really? Lon Xian smiled and said, But you have to tell me your name. I don't even know your name. The fat little girl didn't even know who she was, and she ran over to speak up for her. She smiled brightly and said sweetly, You're so nice. My name is Yong Shi, but you can also call me Shi. My papa calls me Shi. What's your name? Lon Xian also happily took Shishi's hand, jumped and said, My name is Lon Xian. My mother calls me Xian Air. You can also call me Xian Air. Hee, okay, Xian Air, you can also call me Shi. The little girl added nervously, Are we good friends now? Yes, we are good friends. Lon Xian nodded and said. The two little girls happily held each other's hands and jumped on the ground. After making a friend, Shi was in a good mood. Although there were still traces of tears on her face, her eyes were smiling and her mouth couldn't close. However, she was still not satisfied. This time, she took the initiative to pull Lon Xian to the little girl who was sitting next to her and asked, Do you want to make friends with us? Yong Luochi stood up nervously and looked at Shi and the others at a loss. Shi, you shouldn't ask like that. Lon Xian said, It's not polite. Teacher Moo said that we should greet others first and say hello. Well, I'm sorry. I should say hello. She turned to Yong Luochi and said, Hello. Yong Luochi shyly waved her right hand. She was really introverted. When talking to strangers, she was so nervous that her mind went blank. She learned it this time. She asked first, Hello, my name is Shi. She is Xian Air. What's your name? My name is Yong Luochi, but my father calls me Chi, Yong Luochi said nervously. Chi, Shi, haha, your names are so similar. Lon Xian laughed. Her laughter was so loud that it could be heard through the wall. You are both surnamed Yong. I thought you were sisters. Hee, Chi, we are really like sisters. But if we are sisters, then I am the elder sister. She said happily, because I am older. Yong Luochi smiled shyly. She didn't know how to answer, but she was infected by their enthusiasm and didn't become impatient. Then, Chi, can we be friends? The three of us can be good friends, okay? She asked. Yong Luochi's beautiful eyes showed a desire. She asked in a low voice, Can we? Of course. We are all good friends in the future. Lon Xian pulled her over and said with a smile. She was the happiest. She suddenly had two good friends. Chapter 175. Hint. It should be 710. I made a mistake. I can't change the title. There are more. When it was time for lunch, Shi's circle of friends had increased to 4. In addition to Lon Xian and Yong Luochi, there was also Nan Zhaoyu. This shy little boy was also pulled over by the 3 little girls to play together. My papa's cooking is delicious. Mom asked me to bring an extra portion so that we can eat together. Cici told her friends early on that she was really happy to have met so many good friends. She really wanted to take out the things she liked to share with her friends. But my dad also brought me lunch. Yong Luochi said regretfully, I can't eat that much. I also brought food. Nan Zhaoyu said weakly. Then I'll eat with Shi. Lon Xian said with a smile, I also brought food, but I can eat a lot. It's okay, we can all eat together. She smiled sweetly, my papa is very good, the food he cooks is super delicious. There's a lot of meat. I like chicken wings the most. I like it too, I like it too. Lon Xin, the little fat girl, was drooling. Teacher Shan and Teacher Kai led the children to the dining area. It was a large dining hall. Every child from every class had to come. There were white, clean tables and long brown stools. They were arranged neatly, and it was very lively. Children, you have to wash your hands first, then you can eat. Teacher Mu smiled gently, clapped his hands and said softly. Shi and the others lined up and washed their hands at the sink one after another. Shi looked around curiously and learned from everyone else to turn on the tap and wash her hands. However, Shi washed very carefully. She paid attention to personal hygiene at home under the request of her father and mother. Lon Xian was more careless. She washed casually and couldn't wait to leave the line. She ran to Teacher Mu and said, Teacher Mu, can I sit with Shi, Chi, and Nan Zhaoyu? Hey, Xian why? Teacher Mu asked with a smile, don't you want to sit where you used to sit? No, we're good friends, and we want to sit together and eat. Lon Xian explained. Then Shi said that she wanted to share her father's cooking with us. I want to eat it too. Teacher Mu rubbed Lon Xian's forehead with a smile and said, Okay, I'll arrange you to sit together later. Sure enough, after a while, Shi and the others were arranged to sit at a table by the teachers. Lon Xian happily sat next to Shi, while Yang Luoqi sat on the other side of Shi. Nan Zhaoyu was more miserable, so he could only sit on the opposite side. Let me tell you guys, Mr. Mu is a really nice person. Lon Xian happily said a few more words until Mr. Shan and Mr. Kai distributed the food to all the students. Teacher Shan and Teacher Kai didn't make a mistake, because it was quite easy to recognize. When parents reported in the morning, they were asked to put their children's names on the lunchboxes. She got her 2 boxes of food. She happily opened the Blue Cat lunchbox. This lunchbox had a built-in mechanism. As long as she pressed a button, it would open by itself. Each layer was spread open, a bit like an automatic pencil box used by primary school students. The bottom layer was white rice. It didn't look as good as when it was just steamed, but it was still fragrant after being heated. The middle layer was mainly vegetables. In order to let Shi eat more vegetables, Yang Yi put in a little more effort to make a combination of meat and vegetables, fresh shrimp and vegetable rolls. White rice paper wrapped green lettuce, red finely shaved carrot shreds, and beige almond fragments. The most attractive part was the bright red shrimp meat inside. These were fresh shrimp. They were boiled and peeled, cut open like the shrimp on sushi, and then soaked in vinegar and lemon juice. Roll after roll, it looked very tempting and very appetizing. Of course, the most attractive thing for the children was the meat dishes on the top layer. This was the first day. In order to let Shi eat happily, Yang Yi naturally made her favorite chicken wings. However, this time, Yang Yi changed the method. He made the chicken wings that looked good and not hot. Of course, when he put them into the lunchbox, Yang Yi still removed the ginger and onion that Shi didn't like. In addition to a few chicken wings wrapped in curd, there were also wood ears, cucumbers, and scrambled eggs with meat slices, which was the legendary Mu Shu meat. The colorful colors really made it look, smell, and taste good. Wow, it looks delicious. Lon Xian said with her eyes shining. Nan Zhaoyu looked at Shi's lunch and then looked at his own lunchbox. The white rice was covered with a few poor cabbages and a few pieces of dismal meat. In comparison, it was too horrible to look at. He couldn't help but nod in agreement, and he kept swallowing his saliva. Not only were the meals of her friends not as good as Shi's, but the lunch of the other 2 boys sitting at the table was also not as good as Shi's. She was busy opening the second lunchbox. It opened automatically, and the internal structure was exactly the same. However, there was no rice inside. Everything else was the same as Shi's lunchbox, but there were a few more chicken wings at the bottom. Yang Yi guessed that the children's favorite food should be chicken wings, so he specially took more. Okay, let's eat together. She happily clapped her hands in front of her chest. Looking at the food, she also felt her stomach growling, but the little girl still didn't forget to call her friends. I want to eat chicken wings. Lon Xian swallowed her saliva and stretched out her chopsticks to pick up a chicken wing. She had already taken a fancy to the largest chicken wing in the red lunchbox, so she wanted to be the first to eat. After putting it back into her lunchbox, the chubby little girl felt a little embarrassed. She pushed her lunchbox and said to Shishi, "Shishi, do you want to try the eggplant my mother made?" Shishi nodded happily and said, "Well, I'll eat a piece too." In fact, the chubby little girl thought that it would be best if Shishi ate all of them, and then she would eat Shishi's portion. Wow, it would be too wonderful. Young Luochi ate in small mouthfuls. Although it wasn't elegant for a child to eat, her movements were still relatively small. She wasn't like the chubby little girl who ate so much that rice grains flew everywhere. She also wasn't like Cece who ate for a while and had oil stuck to her face. However, she also found it difficult to resist this delicious food. After being reserved for a while, she whispered, "Shishi, can I eat one too? I want to eat this." She was referring to the fresh shrimp and vegetable rolls, but Cece didn't have the time to care about that. She was busy dealing with a piece of super delicious chicken wing. Both of her little hands were moving, and she said vaguely, eat." Seeing young Luochi moving her chopsticks, the reserved Nan Xiaoyu couldn't help but pick up a piece of chicken wing. The two little boys at the same table were also swallowing their saliva crazily. They all felt that their food was tasteless. Finally, one of them couldn't help but reach out his chopsticks hesitantly. Pa! Halfway, it was intercepted by a chubby little hand. Chapter 176. Hint. It should be 810. I made a mistake. I can't change the title. There are still 2 chapters. What are you doing? Lon Xian was actually a very kind girl, except when it came to food. She grabbed the chicken wing with her left hand and nibbled it, while her right hand blocked the little boy's chopsticks. The little boy didn't have the courage to argue, as if he had been caught doing something bad. He drooped his head listlessly and whispered, "I saw you all eating, and I want to eat a piece too." She pulled Lon Xian's hand. The little girl was now a big tabby cat, but it was still a beautiful big tabby cat. She said, "It doesn't matter, Xian, my papa made a lot, and then everyone can eat." Lon Xian resentfully withdrew her hand, but she first put the second chicken wing she had her eyes on into the lunchbox, and then looked at the little boy complacently. However, the other party didn't care about her. The little boy happily picked up a chicken wing, and then thanked Shi. The word, "thank you," made the little girl so happy that her big eyes narrowed into small crescents. While Shi was having lunch with her friends, Yang Yi and Murphy were living in their own world. After returning home, Murphy was still a little worried about her daughter. She turned on the TV, but didn't know what content she was watching. Yang Yi, on the other hand, went into the kitchen, and did something mysteriously. Of course, at this time, Murphy didn't have the mind to think about what Yang Yi was doing. He said that he would make a special lunch for Murphy, but Murphy didn't think much of it. Yang Yi, on the other hand, was very carefully prepared. After he had this idea before, he had planned for a long time, and also secretly tried to make sure that nothing would go wrong. However, he didn't expect that the opportunity would come so soon, and he could finally take it out. P.S. The following is the teaching section. I originally wanted to skip it directly, but considering that many male readers might use it, I'll introduce it to you. Everything starts with chopping the meat, just like making dumplings. The chopped meat, the carrots, the right amount of 5-spice powder, salt, fresh ginger, monosodium glutamate, and sesame oil are mixed in the same direction. At the same time, the soy sauce is dripped bit by bit. Yang Yi didn't plan to add cabbage or shiitake mushrooms because he didn't really want to make dumplings. If he mixed them like this, it would affect the effect. However, Yang Yi still took out the cabbage. He cut off the leaves and left the stalk, as well as the carrot and cucumber. The latter two were cut into slender slices as thin as cicada wings with a slanted knife. Ignite the fire, take out the pot, boil the water, and wait for the water to boil. Add in the cabbage stalks, carrot slices, and cucumber slices. Boil the carrot slices and cucumber slices for about 30 seconds before removing the water. Boil the cabbage stalks for 2 minutes to ensure that they are softened before removing the water. Next, it was a test of knife skills. With Yang Yi's skills, he could only use the slanted knife to cut out 2 thin layers of skin from the cabbage stalks. The middle layer couldn't be used. This thin layer of cabbage skin looked crystal clear and had more texture than rice paper. Or rather, it was more like a flower petal. That's right. Next, Yang Yi had to pinch the meat filling into small strips, and then wrap it with the cabbage stalks. The top had to be opened wide, and the tail had to be slightly narrowed. One couldn't see anything, but when Yang Yi placed the cabbage skin wrapped in the meat filling to make a circle around the edge of the large white plate, the embryonic form had already appeared. Next, the cooked carrot slices and cucumber slices were wrapped in the meat filling in the same way. The green roses were wrapped in the second circle, and then the pink roses were filled in the middle. To decorate, Yang Yi sprinkled a little yellow pepper in the middle. Of course, this wasn't the last step. He still had to steam the meat filling in the steamer. This would take around 15 minutes. After steaming, it was basically ready to eat. However, Yang Yi was a person who strived for perfection. He also poured out the soup from the steamer into the wok, lit the fire and boiled it. Then, he poured in water and starch. This process was called thickening. After the soup boiled again, he turned off the heat and poured the soup evenly over the flowers. Instantly, the colorful flowers seemed to have come to life. The crystal clear dewdrops were very lovable. Time for lunch. Yang Yi pulled Murphy to the dining table. The two of them sat at the side. Murphy also recovered. She looked at the table. There was a dish covered with a spherical lid. She didn't know what it was. Then, there was a clean plate in front of each of them. There was also a bowl of prepared sauce. This was simply too simple. Murphy had eaten so many meals at Yang Yi's house, but she had never seen such a simple meal. There was no main dish, and there was only one dish. However, Murphy didn't mind. She was curious about what was under the large hemispherical lid. After all, Yang Yi said that he had prepared it carefully. "Oh, did you make steak? That's not right. Why didn't I smell the steak?" Murphy asked curiously. It really seemed like they were going to eat steak. It was a very Western dining style. When eating, the sauce could be poured over the steak. Of course, some people like to eat with it. However, it didn't seem like it. Murphy saw that there were chopsticks beside the plate, and not a knife and fork. "It's not steak." Yang Yi pulled out the chair in a gentlemanly manner and served Murphy to sit down. Then, he poured fresh orange juice for Murphy. Yes, it seemed like a waste of a glass, but since that incident, Murphy didn't want to touch wine anymore. "Thank you." Murphy saw that Yang Yi was so serious. She found it funny and also became elegant. Yang Yi leaned forward slightly and pressed his right hand on the spherical lid. He said gently, "Murphy, today's dish, I specially researched it for you. I hope you will like it." After that, Yang Yi opened the lid. There was no dazzling light, but there were bright colors. A bouquet of flowers suddenly appeared in front of Murphy. Murphy was stunned for a moment. At first glance, she didn't see it clearly. She thought it was a real bouquet of flowers. While she was moved, she also wondered, are we going to eat flowers for lunch? But after all, she wasn't short-sighted. Murphy quickly recognized that these were just fake flowers. Even the stamens were balls of meat stuffing. Pfft. Murphy was moved and found it funny. She gently hammered Yang Yi's arm with her hand and said, Why did you come up with such a trick? Last time, flying wing to wing, what is it now?" Yang Yi scratched his head. He really didn't think about the name of this dish. Flying wing to wing was the meaning of chicken wings. But this bouquet of flowers, did it still need a meaning? Murphy looked at Yang Yi's embarrassed look and couldn't help but laugh again. Okay, Okay, don't think about it. Even without this name, I like it very much. Thank you for the flowers you prepared so carefully. Yang Yi had been very serious and pretending to be a gentleman. Now, he also showed a smile. Murphy's love was the biggest encouragement for him. But, how do we eat this? Murphy asked. Eat it like dumplings. Yang Yi reached out and took Murphy's chopsticks. He picked up a pink rose, wrapped with carrot slices in the middle, dipped it in soy sauce, and handed it to Murphy. Oh, don't destroy it. Murphy anxiously cried. I haven't taken a picture yet. Chapter 177. In front of a plate of incomplete, fresh flowers, Murphy angrily looked at Yang Yi, who awkwardly raised his chopsticks. Then what should we do? Yang Yi was in a dilemma. Put it down, I'll take a picture first. Murphy pouted and pointed to the plate. Well, Yang Yi put the pink rose back. It was the same as before, but the color was darker. After all, it was dipped in sauce. Murphy didn't care. She happily took out her phone and took a few pictures. Of course, in this era, the camera quality was still very low, and the effect was very ordinary. She felt that it was not enough, so she ran to get Yang Yi's DSLR and let Yang Yi take a picture of her and the fresh flowers. In the camera, Murphy was full of smiles, and she even stretched out her V finger, which she felt was very awkward. I can't bear to eat it. After a while, Murphy muttered, sat back and said, These are all works of art. How can you eat works of art? Yang Yi pondered for a moment, and he said, How about I make something else? You don't want to eat this for lunch? Murphy pulled him, smiled, and said, Okay, I'm just kidding, no need to go through so much trouble. Come, you eat first. Murphy picked up the chopsticks, picked up the pink rose that Yang Yi dipped in sauce, and handed it to Yang Yi. Come, be good and open your mouth. This was the tone used to coax she. Murphy was obviously mischievous. Her eyes were like the autumn water, shining with a smile. In fact, this was Murphy's own chopsticks. But at this time, if he still cared about these things, Yang Yi deserved to be single. Yang Yi did not hesitate to open his mouth. He also very sensibly bowed his head and let Murphy put the steamed dumpling into his mouth. In the end, he even sucked the tip of the chopsticks. Is it good? Murphy looked at Yang Yi chewing and asked expectantly. Yang Yi nodded. After he finished eating, he said, The taste is not bad. The meat filling is very good. It's just that it's a little cold. You have to eat quickly. Murphy also picked up a piece of pink rose. She didn't mind that the chopsticks had been eaten by Yang Yi before. She followed Yang Yi's example and dipped it in the sauce before stuffing it into her mouth to taste. The sauce was made with vinegar and other condiments to promote digestion. It wasn't very salty, but instead, it allowed the fresh taste of the meat to blossom in the mouth. It's delicious. Murphy's eyes lit up and she pouted. Originally, she didn't have much hope. After all, many good-looking dishes sacrificed taste for shape. However, Yang Yi's plate of fresh flowers was unexpectedly delicious. Moreover, Yang Yi's meat stuffing was not only delicious, but it also solidified the water content. It was even more delicious than ordinary dumpling stuffing. Is that so? Yang Yi said with a smile. Mo Fei's affirmation made him feel that it was worth it to spend a lot of effort to make this dish. You eat too. Murphy picked up another pink rose, dipped it in the sauce and sent it over. Yang Yi was stunned. He didn't expect Murphy to pick it up for him. He bowed his head and took another bite. Mo Fei took back the chopsticks at this moment, and an imperceptible blush appeared on her cold face. Only then did she remember that she had just eaten the chopsticks. Then, the two of them kept going back and forth. Didn't that mean that they had indirectly kissed? In order to cover up her inner shame, Murphy bowed her head to capture the other, fresh flowers. However, she encountered a problem with the green rose. The thin slices cut out of the cucumber were not so long, and they were very crispy. They didn't wrap the meat filling well like the others. If you accidentally pick it up, the chopsticks will fall apart. Hey, what should I do with this? Murphy asked Yang-yi for help. Yang-yi smiled slightly. He took out his chopsticks and gently said, "Let me do it." Yang-yi's strength was very light. The chopsticks steadily picked up a green rose, dipped it in the sauce, and handed it to Murphy. "This is also good. I've picked it up for you twice. This time, it's your turn to pick it up for me." Murphy blushed and said while eating the green rose. "Cucumber is also very delicious," Murphy said while chewing. "Then try the cabbage." Yang-yi continued to pick for Murphy. Murphy didn't only eat by herself. Her interest was piqued by Yang-yi. She smiled and also picked it up for Yang-yi. The two of them fed each other, and the big plate of fresh flowers was quickly wiped out. In the end, the two of them even used their hands. Yes, Murphy couldn't pick up the green rose, so she directly picked one up. Without dipping it in the sauce, she stuffed it into Yang-yi's mouth. She even giggled and said, "I'm full. The rest is yours. You have to finish it, understand?" Yang-yi nodded, but before he could finish the one in his mouth, Mo-fei stuffed another one into his mouth. She was still using her hands, trying to stuff Yang-yi's mouth full as if she was pranking him. Yang-yi had no choice but to grab Mo-fei's hand. He and Mo-fei stared at each other. At first, Mo-fei was still giggling as if she had been caught doing a prank. But later, when they looked at each other like this, he felt that the temperature between them had risen a little, and the air between them seemed to be conducting electric current. Murphy pursed her lips. She didn't know why, but her heart was beating wildly. "Murphy." Yang-yi finally finished eating. He couldn't help but lick his lips and said softly, "N." Murphy's hand was gently held by Yang-yi. In fact, she could have broken free if she pulled back, but Murphy didn't. She looked at Yang-yi's burning eyes and was a little flustered. "Murphy, let's be together, okay? I like you." Yang-yi actually didn't have the intention to confess again. But after he held Murphy's hand, he couldn't resist the impulse in his heart. This was not something that could be expected. When Mo-fei saw Yang-yi's eyes that were filled with love, she was already mentally prepared. She bit her lower lip. Although she couldn't fake her expression, her mouth was still stubborn. She still pretended to be cold when she said, "That won't do. How can I let you off so easily?" But this wasn't her original intention. After saying it, she immediately added, "At the very least, you have to write a new love poem for me on the spot. I'll only agree if I'm satisfied. I can't agree to it so easily. Men usually don't cherish things that are too easy to get. I'll just set up a small obstacle for him." The woman thought she was smart. Yang-yi was actually a little disappointed at first. But after hearing Murphy's addition, he was overjoyed. However, Murphy was worried about her own gains and losses. Will it be too difficult to write a poem? What if he can't write it? Hence, Murphy changed her words, "Or you don't have to write a poem. You can draw a comic instead. Just draw the shape of, 'I love you.' It has to make me happy." Perhaps Yang-yi could do this? However, Yang-yi quickly shook his head and said, no need to change. "I'll read a poem for you now. I'll write it for you." You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.